Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round in the story of the UKSimRacing Community GT3 League Season 11 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. And today marks the penultimate round and with it the final sprint race round of the season. It's round number 8 of 9 and we are here in Australia today at the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit to kick off an Australian doubleheader that will see us out to the very conclusion as of the next round. But let's not look ahead to the final round, let's stay here for today. And indeed the Phillip Island circuit, a lesser known one on the international stage, but becoming more and more well known over the years, is a circuit that's seen major refurbishment in its extended history, spanning the best part of 70 plus years, and its current layout being conceived in 1988 when it was refurbished and given a major overhaul, and now it's become a circuit which has become commonplace on the calendars of the likes of MotoGP and also GT World Challenge Australia. And at its core are 12 sweeping corners with major elevation changes and a couple of hairpins thrown in. But the key core element here is that it's a difficult circuit to overtake at, but it's also one that's very difficult on the driver and puts you through a large amount of physical strain. With the majority of the corners being around here being all about throttle modulation, alternatively trail braking to a major extent, it does need from lap to lap. It's the ultimate test of the driver's stamina, and well, if you find yourself wounded come the end of the day, it may be that you're slightly weak to a potential mistake come at the very final lap, and well, if you go deep here, you go off into the grass and it's a long way to recovery, and that could be the difference between victory or finishing as the runner-up. But on top of that as well, with overtaking being so challenging around here, track position is going to be key, and the emphasis will be on overtaking from lights out to checkered flag when we go racing today. But as our drivers get ready to go racing, well, let's take you through the schedule very shortly. But before we do so, we welcome you all to this live broadcast being brought to you live on the official UKSimRacing YouTube channel. And indeed, in the content booth, you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spin, depending on what media you follow me on. And I'll be bringing you all your racing action today and indeed the entirety of the season. But again, remember, do subscribe to the UKSimRacing YouTube channel because it's the only place you can stay up to date with all the latest broadcasts and highlight reels which are being produced as well. I think we've got plenty more media planned for 2023. But speaking of what we've got planned, let's talk about what we've got planned for today, indeed the remainder of the season. And as we can see, we started off all the way back on the 25th of June and we've wound the way to nearly the bottom of the calendar. But as with today being the 27th of August, it's crazy to think that it's already been 2 months since we set off, and we set off in neighbouring Japan at the Fuji International Speedway, and that was our first sprint race round of the season, and what a thrill it was there in Japan, with the battles up and down the field, and in particular between Sam Sherwood and Erik Røseth in the elite class. Then in round number 2 a week later, we made our way to Spain for a Spanish doubleheader, which saw us kick off at the Circuito de Jerez on the 2nd of July, and there we got to see the battles of plenty once again, and Erik Røseth and what was Mark Davison contested of the elite class win, and we also got to see further down the order some stellar performances, and also the gap to what was at the time the pro leader of Aaron McGregor being shortened rapidly in terms of pace. Then round number 3 we made our way to the newly introduced the iRacing platform as of this season of racing, Motorland Aragon, and on the 9th of July, well, it was a tricky one there with track position being ever critical and also the strain on our drivers and the tyres of their cars being absolutely heavy at Motorland Aragon. But there we got to see some stellar performances up and down the field, and also some close-knit battles, and Rhys Saunders fight his way through to the front to take elite victory. Then round number 4, we made our way to the United States of America, and that was to conclude the first half of the season at the Virginia International Raceway, also known as VIR, on the 16th of July. We got to see many drivers step it wrong in the Virginia International Raceway and make their way onto the grass, but those who didn't came out on top. And well, thinking about it in terms of looking back to the race net in round number 4, it was the continued rise of Erik Røseth in the elite class, but also to talk a little bit about the pro class there, we got to see some phenomenal standout performances, and Matt Strand really bringing home some major points there and with his first win of the season. Then we had a break fortnight, 2 weeks off for all of our drivers to spend time on vacation, but we returned to the racing action on the 6th of August in round number 5 in the United States of America at the roller coaster ride of road racing, that is Road Atlanta. And in the state of Georgia, we got to see our drivers go tooth and nail once again with the close battling, and we got to see a new name-take victory in the pro class in particular, and continue that run of multiple winners in the pro class where no repeated names, and that was in the form of what was Chris Kirkland with a dominant performance. And in the AM class as well, we got to see what was a standout performance from none other than Matt Edmondson, who became the 5th AM winner in 5 races, and continuing that chain effect then. Edmondson achieved not just his first podium of his career, but also his first win with it in the UKSimRacing GT3 League. Then round number 6 saw us make our way back to Spain for the Circuit de Barcelona Catalonia, and then on the 13th of August we got to see the Spanish circuit and the sultry sunshine really push our drivers to the ultimate limit there in concluding our run of sprint races. And well, in the AM class we got to see Simon Andre Livingston become our first repeat winner in the AM class, and then round number 7, last time out, was the first endurance race round of the season, and we made our way to France for the Circuit de la Sarthe, also as the Circuit de 24 du Mans, but you all know and love it and referred to it as Le Mans, celebrated its centenary of the infamous 24-hour race earlier this year. And well, we got to see our drivers absolutely go for gold there, and in the AM class it was Satinder Dinsa who held on the end despite the intense pressure from Stuart Pearson in order to come home with his first victory of his UKSimRacing GT3 League career. But today it's the 27th of August and we are here in Australia at the Phillip Island circuit for our final sprint race round of the season, and next week we bring it all to a close with a big question of who is the king of the hill, or really we should say the king of the mountain. That's Mountain Wulu, also known as Mount Panorama. Alternatively, you'll know and love it and refer to it as Bathurst. And on the 3rd of September we'll answer that question and crown our champions across what is the elite, the pro and the AM classes, and also the team's championship. So we've still got plenty to go, and well, let's go right into the thick of our circuit for today. It's the Grand Prix layout of the Phillip Island circuit, located near the town of Ventnor on Phillip Island in the state of Victoria in Australia. And as we said earlier, located on a southern island of the Australia country, and therefore it's a circuit which is lesser known compared to perhaps the more glorified circuits such as Adelaide, Bathurst or Turtley, Melbourne. But be rest assured here, ladies and gentlemen, whilst this circuit may not be as well known, it's going to become very well known to our drivers today, and also it's a circuit that is one not to be underestimated in its potential to create fantastic and thrilling racing. But as we can see from the circuit map provided us by iRacing.com, thank you to them for their brilliant simulator and the circuit maps that come with it, is a circuit that is fast flowing, albeit with its limitations on overtaking. It becomes one which is about mistakes and putting pressure on rivals. And what the two-dimensional map does not show us necessarily is a significant amount of elevation change as our drivers go over the course of the lap. But as they make their way out the final corner into the start for this straight, the longest straight of the circuit and where the primary overtaking opportunities will be, they'll charge their way into the sweeping right-hander of turn number 1, and there as they make their way through the long complex, they'll wind their way downhill into turn number 2, and already a slightly off-camber turn number 1 is then going to be set up by an even more off-camber turn number 2, while drivers will need to try and modulate the brakes and the throttle to roll the way through the long left-hander that gradually tapers towards the end of the apex as well, and therefore it becomes a very tricky one if you go too wide into the corner to hold that outside line, and the driver on the inside will have the authority. But as they make their way out of turn number 2, they'll roll the way up towards turn number 4, going for the extended left-hander of turn number 3, which will be flat out, and into the heavy braking zone for the first of 2 hairpins. And at turn number 4, again, we'll see some potential major overtakes there and potentially lunges under braking. But next in turn number 4, it's the kink of 5, which sets up the run into turn number 6, and they're starting to make the way uphill. They'll go through the long left-hander, which continues to rise up through turns 7, 8, and into 9. And as they go to the peak of the apex at turn number 9, it's suddenly a downhill drop into turn number 10. A very sharp gradient change there as they make their way down to the second hairpin. And again, we can expect some drivers to go very heavy on the brakes there in order to try and make moves count on the second hairpin, before they make the way on the switch back up to turn number 11 and roll the way downhill through 12 to complete lap and do it all over again. So it's all about momentum-based racing here, and also about being bold and brave on the brakes if you want to get a move done, and therefore it could definitely set us up for a contentious round. But coming on to our rules for today. To remind you of the rules, of course, because we can't go racing without rules. Setup-wise, drivers are not permitted to change their car without penalty at any point during the season, and we can tell you that nobody's changed their car since the previous round. A car fuel load should be restricted to 50% for all races. Qualifying-wise today, a lone qualifying format shall be used, where all our drivers go out to an isolated instance of the circuit, and they'll have the circuit to themselves to set their best possible time, in which they'll have 10 minutes to set their best possible time, no limits on the number of laps available. Now coming on to the rules for our race in general, we can see that the races shall commence by a double file rolling start. This is the tradition of the UKSimRacing GT3 League. There are no mandatory pit stop requirements with all sprint races. We are expecting one pit stop to be needed for our drivers to take on fuel, but they do it at their leisure. Each driver has one fast pair available in the race should they pick up damage, and all race journeys shall be conducted post-race. In terms of the sprint race specifically, a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant points. That's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. You want to hear about that schedule and go live to the pictures on the circuit here. And well, as we can see there, our schedule for today, times in British Summer Time, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1. UTC +1 is as follows. In just over 4 minutes time, we'll be going into our qualifying session. 10 minutes in duration, as we mentioned only moments ago, and this is going to be a critical qualifying session given the challenge for overtaking here at Phillip Island, after which we'll take a 5-minute break where we'll be able to see our drivers get themselves ready and give themselves an opportunity to switch on to what will be their race setups, and then we'll be going to the grid at 8:15 this evening for our 45-minute sprint race in round number 8 of the GT3 League Season 11 at UKSimRacing. And well, could we see some late drama which will set us up for a thrilling season finale at Mount Wooloo next week? We'll have to wait and see, but before we get to all that and more, we do say hello to you guys and girls in the YouTube chat, and we do take a look to our drivers making their way on around right now and give you a quick recap of each of the classes and their championship stories. Well, firstly, of course, we start with the elite class, and in the elite class we see Rhys Saunders making his way on around right now, and he currently is our highest placed championship driver given those drivers who are out of the circuit today. However, he's not a championship leader in the elite class. The driver who has that accolade is Erik Røseth at Racing Lab Esports AM, and we do suspect that Røseth will be missing today and coming back to conclude his championship campaign in the season finale at Bathurst. Keep in mind that the season finale round cannot be dropped in terms of drop scores, and our drivers do have 2 drop scores available to them over the course of the season, and Røseth missed the race last time out at Le Mans, and he'll miss today, so therefore he'll have 2-0 drop scores, and he will get the maximum possible points from all the preceding rounds and also the season finale. Now, Røseth has an advantage of what is 16 points over Håkon Grebstad for England Motorsport, who is not in attendance either currently, and we do hope he does arrive sometime today, but if not, well, that'll be his second 0 score, with the fact he had a 0 score from Aragon as well back in round number 3. And then Rhys Saunders is a further, what is 9 points behind, and looking at an opportunity to try and sneak away with that P2 in the championship come the end of the season. He is also arguably an outside contender for the potential championship win, but it would rely on both Røseth and Grebstad having a disastrous season finale for Saunders to pick up the maximum possible points, so therefore it's in the balance, but he does have an outside chance. The Team Year 1 drive having a phenomenal drive and a sensational run of strategy at Le Mans, and picking up a fantastic win in France last week. And well, he's definitely had some difficult times this season, but nobody can take anything away from the Britain last round of the fact it really was a masterclass. But speaking of masterclasses, well, right now we've been set up with a masterclass of a championship finale potentially in the pro class, and we just have to look to one name making his way on around right now. He's currently the fastest man on circuit, in fact, out of all of our drivers, not just in the individual classes, and this is Chris Kirkland, the Downforce Racing driver, as he makes his way into the pit lane. But the thing for Kirkland is he's not quite contention for the championship, but meanwhile we do have a grand total of 6 drivers vying for the Pro Championship, and well, some of them are on circuit, some of them in the pit lane, and some are not in attendance today. And well, one of those big names is Casper Tunstead, who currently is joint leader for Peak Sim Racing alongside Aaron McGregor from ProTech Motorsport. And well, speaking of the ProTech Motorsport driver in the Ferrari, the Scotsman here making his way on around. They're joint on 181 points and have an 11-point advantage over Matt Strand. And well, Matt Strand at the moment, I do believe not on circuit, or in fact not in attendance currently. We do hope to see him, but Matt Strand is in P3 at 170 points and only 4 points clear of Darren Sharples. And here is Darren Sharples, UKSimRacing Price, running the new livery today for the UKSimRacing team. And then we do have a 5-point gap to winner last time out of Brandon Hay. And will the Newbridge Esports driver finally picking up his first UKSimRacing GT3 League win, and it meant so much to him at Le Mans, you wouldn't believe it. Do definitely go check out that broadcast and also the post-round interview from Brandon Hay to hear more about the number 96 driver's feelings with regards to taking that win. And we also have behind him by a single point Casper Brotner, who has just made his way into the pit lane. And well, we do look to Casper Brotner parked up there for old dudes in cars, but right now it is 21 points that separate the top 6 in the Pro Championship. And well, whilst Tunstead and McGregor are the favourites, and Strand is currently the second favourite, if you will, if any of the top 3 drop points today or make a mistake, then you can imagine that Sharples, Hay and Brotner will all be eager to pick up the pieces. But meanwhile, we come to the AM class, and the story in the AM class is that Stephen Andre Livingston is currently your championship leader, but he's not currently in the pit lane or out of the circuit, and he's leading by only 3 points over Steinar Sani, and I do believe that Sani not currently in attendance today. And then Jack Whitewood sits a further 4 points behind, as most of drivers now made the way into the pit lane. And Thomas Bolger there makes it very wide coming out of turn number 2, and the Rexy does go to the tyre barrier, but you also do have a further 9 points by Stuart Pearson and a further 2 points to Satinder Dienza, who was your winner last time out in that great battle between himself and Pearson, and the two of them there have got themselves into the outside chance of winning the AM Championship of the top 3 falter by comparison. But the Tiki Supersport tyre driver will be looking to make it a second win of the road today, but we do see that Stephen Parker Hamilton is looking very fast in the AM class currently. But it's time for qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. Who's going to put it on pole? Let's find out. So as our drivers make their way out of the circuit for the qualifying session, and we do say hello specifically now to a good number of you in the YouTube chat, including Jed70, and that's very kind words for yourself there, Jed. I do appreciate it. We also say hello there to Stargor Living, who says, watch out for Satinder and Stephen tonight, fast AM drivers, and good evening to you, Stargor. And we also say hello to Satinder Dietzer there, who says, let's see if I can get the back-to-back win. It will be a very difficult race. Indeed, that difficulty factor is going to be so crucial here in terms of the challenge of this circuit, and we'll ride aboard with one of our drivers shortly to show you why this is such a difficult lap to piece together. We also do say hello to Martin Tillin, who says, go on Tiki for the win, in reference to Tiki at SimSport. And we also do say hello there to Rhys Saunders, and well, says he's just here for tuning in and enjoying the broadcast. That's very kind of you to say. And well, there, Jed's Serenity, John Eddowes, by the way. Well, good evening to you, John. We do miss seeing you out on circuit, it must be said. And well, John, being a highly decorated driver in the UKSimRacing GT3 League series, in the fact he did pick up what was the pro win, if my memory serves me correctly, back in season 9, I want to say, in what was a phenomenal battle between himself, and I do believe it was at the time was Peter Cox from UKSimRacing, and that went down to the wire. You could have cut the tension with a butter knife, and well, as we see James Colley making his way, winding his way up through turn number 9, down into 10 right now. What's going to be important to our drivers here today in terms of qualifying? Well, firstly, we are expecting the cars with the greater natural rotation with regards to how they handle to perform better. So the mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars will naturally have an advantage at this circuit, particularly in the second half of the lap, where we do see a large amount of direction change and also a number of significant sweepers, such as the run out of turns 5, 6, up to 7, 8, and 9, and also the run off of turns 11 and 12, where you want to be able to get that better rotation into the quarter apex. However, if your car is set up for more straight line speed and power, you will have a a bit of a good run into turn number 1 out of the final corner, and also the run out of turn number 2 in towards turns 3 and 4. But the key thing here is that handling is going to be key, so the mid-engine rear-wheel drive car should have an advantage in one lap pace qualifying, and one in particular, the car that really has been the dominant force all season in qualifying, the Porsche 992, as we see one exhibited here by Ryan Davies. But on top of that as well, you do need as a driver to have the confidence in the car here, and also that muscle memory absolutely clocked in when it comes to throttle input, in terms of being full throttle versus 40% throttle through to 90% throttle, all the way up and down, and the same for braking around here. If you can master trail braking at Phillip Island, then you'll mostly have mastered it for any circuit, and the fact it is such a key part of delivering a strong lap here. As the drivers are onto their first flying laps, we do look from Davies to boys Paul Joseph Clister, the Olympus esports driver, always a fan favourite here, racing in the AM class and still looking to pick up his first AM podium. He has been pushing hard for top 5 finishes in the latter half of this season, and well, could today be the day? We'll have to wait and see in the number 92 driver's favour. But as he winds his way out to turn 5 into 6 now, the gradual left-hander with a bit of road camber there as well, albeit it's not quite visible from our cameraman's perspective, but let's assure you as a driver, you do feel that camber coming through the corner, and on the long way uphill he goes through turns 7, 8 and into 9, but even a downhill dip there between turns 7 and 9 via the right-hander at turn number 8, and that's the thing, this circuit really does throw at you every little nook and cranny when it does come to elevation changes in those sweepers, and therefore that's what makes it such a challenging circuit, and why once you've raced here for the first time, you sometimes get a bit of an addiction and you want to keep coming back because you know there's an extra tenth there. But laps are starting to creep onto the board, and we see Chris Kirkland currently the fastest driver of everybody on a 26.497. That's why the Pro class is listed above the Elite class for reference there. If you're wondering why your overlay is potentially glitched, it's not. That's the way the overlay does work there. It lists the classes based on their overall fastest time, and then we do have the Elite top driver currently of Ryan Davies on a 26.735. We see it Cliff there going to P7 in the AM class, the 30.674. He'll feel as though there's a better lap at hand next time around, as I think that might be a bit more of a warm-up lap. But as our drivers now start to make way towards the end of a lap and on to the next one, we do look to Stephen Parker Hamilton going through turn number 11 down into 12, and perhaps the unluckiest driver on the grid this season, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that very shortly. But right now let's focus on some positives for him, and that's we're going to ride on board here with the TPA Racing driver as he takes us around for a flying lap of Phillip Island. Making his way up towards turn number 1, brings the car to the left hand side and gets ready to trail brake on in as he heads into the right hander, wait for it and just gradually start to turn the car and lift off the throttle, keep it in top gear, dab with the brake there if you need to get the nose punch, and now coming into turn number 2, onto the brakes here, long braking, so down to third gear, plenty of apex curve to pull the car around, and now gradually letting the car fly out there with the camber of the road, and coming out to turn number 2 and up towards 3-4. Flat out here, going back up the gearbox, up into 5th gear, shortly up into 6th gear. Now keep the car over to the left, you've got to go onto the brakes in 3, 2, 1, onto the anchors from 120 metres, and in fact backs off the lap entirely there, and Stephen Parker Hamilton not happy the way that lap has gone, so that is an aborted lap. We will try and get you an onboard lap very shortly with one of our other drivers making the way on the round, as we do see slow and steady races. Richard Jones deciding to make his adventure out to turn number 10 and to 11, and in terms of this lap currently is an improving lap, or is it not an improving lap? That is the big question, to improve or not improve. Well, I do believe right now for Jones this may be a gradually improving lap as he winds his way to the end of it, and as he comes on through there, in fact it will be an improving lap. He's improved in sectors 1 and 2. Sector 3 comes on through, he's currently P5 in the Pro class, he jumps up to P3 there on a 26.793, and will now, I believe, he's just cooling the car down there as he lets the car drift wide at turn number 1, but as he does so, meanwhile we do look to other drivers handling around, including Brandon Hay, last time winner in the Pro class at Le Mans, and as we see the Newbridge esports driver making his way out turn number 10 and 11, I think this might be a build-up lap. He might be getting ready to go full attack once again. We'll have to wait and see, as he has improved in sector 2, interestingly enough. And the number 96 driver is going to feel as though he's up against it today, given the fact that his class is made up of mid-engine rear-wheel drive machines, bar his machine, which is front-engine rear-wheel drive, and that drivetrain will make a difference. As he comes to line currently P9, where will this put him? And he moves up to P7 now on a 27.780, as he now goes on to an even fast lap, and we do jump on board here with Hay for the remainder of it, as he takes it up into turn number 2. And you see that the car just gradually sliding on entry to turn 2, goes a bit deep there, but trying to target a later apex, just misses it by a hair's width. And as he heads up towards turn number 4, going through the fast left-hander of 3, brings the car over nice and early here, interestingly, so trying to offset some understeer that's native to the car. Now onto the brakes, so what will be the turn 4 hairpin coming all all the way down to second gear from the 100-meter board, and as he exits out, it's a tight exit onto the power. Don't get too greedy with the exit curve, through 5 and into 6, down to second gear, keep it high in the rev range, tuck into the corner, and immediately stamp on the throttle as you're coming out there, run a little bit wide and heading up towards turn number 8 through the left-hand kicker 7, and now unsighted to turn 8 as he turns and then flat out through the right-hander and up the hill into turn number 9 he goes. 5th gear here, dab the brake on down to 4th, let the engine brake it, turn the car in, and as he comes through turn number 9 downhill into turn number 10, you can't see the actual corner when you brake for it, braking out of 50-meter board, down to 1st gear, slice corner of the circuit, keep the car into the right as he exits, and now into turn number 11, albeit I think hesitating there with the turn in the throttle application, and as he makes his way out of 11 into 12, flat out all the way through now in 5th gear, taking plenty of apex curve there. You can see that's unsettled the car with a raised apex curve. He's got to be careful of that, but he heads to the line, and well, it's not been a perfect lap here for the BMW M4 driver, and therefore I think he's going to bring it to a close in terms of going back to the pit lane. But meanwhile, in the AM class, we do have a new driver on the grid today, and how could we forget not to introduce them? And here you see them for a brief moment before they make their way back to the pit lane. It's Lawrence March, who has joined us in the AM class for Downforce Racing, and in fact I do believe he may have decided that's his qualifying session complete. He's got P2 in the AM class, and he'll be in the number 22 Porsche 992 for the remainder of the season, and we look forward to seeing how he gets on. But meanwhile, looking for a driver who's just made his way back to the pit lane, to a driver who's out of the circuit right now, as we move from the Welshman back to Ryan Davies here, the TT Supersport driver making his way out of 2 and into 3. And as he comes on through, well, right now he is currently fastest man on circuit as we do look to the overall qualifying standings, and you can see there as it currently stands, 23 drivers in attendance in this qualifying session, 21 have got a lap on the board, and Stephen Park Hamilton and currently BJ Alvarez have yet to get a lap on the board, and well, this could be punishing if they're not able to find that lap time, because they'll be starting from the very back of the grid. We know that Parker Hamilton has got a lot of pace here. He was fastest in AM practice, and well, the best he's done so far is a 28.097. He will get one more lap in just about. I think he's going to try and squeeze it in. He may not have enough time, in fact, with that 10-minute clock, and as he winds his way through turn number 2, well, again, the TPA Racing driver, he's shown so much potency in this season, but every time he's had an opportunity to really demonstrate it, where it's been the race or qualifying, bad luck has struck, and right now it looks like Park Hamilton may be having another day of disaster here early on. But as he heads through turn number 4, we're not going to belittle him or take him out of the running yet, because then again it may go wrong for other drivers here, but he's definitely going the hard way about it if he wants to take victory here today, and we know a victory is going to happen at some point for Stephen Park Hamilton, given the fact he right now, I think he'll be saying he deserves one, or at least the space on that AM podium of the race. But as he winds his way up through turn at number 8 and into 9, half a minute now left on this qualifying session, and well, we've only got 2 drivers out on circuit, Aaron McGregor being one of them. He's just completed his qualifying session, and he'll be holding on to what will be a P6 in the Pro class on the grid in the Ferrari 488 Evo. But as we look to those class standings, ladies and gentlemen, here comes Park Hamilton around through the final corner, but I don't think he's going to make it to the line, and I don't think we have overtime rules in effect here, so when 10 minutes hits, we're actually qualifying session done and dusted. Well, there is the checker flag, and that's qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, and it means that it is now time for us to make our way into what will be the warm-up phase. And we're in this time. We've got 5 minutes, of course, for our drivers to get themselves set up with regards to their setups, and then get themselves at a comfortable position for going racing. It also gives them an opportunity to take a bit of a comfort break if needed. And well, 45 minutes of racing ahead. You can imagine the nerves are going to be there, even for the most experienced drivers on the grid. But Ryan Davies taking the overall pole in the elite class, and what a fantastic performance from Ryan Davies. Will be staying in the pit lane at the moment, and we'll give you the update on our Pro and also our pole sitters. I do believe it was Chris Kirkland who took the pole position in the Pro class. Didn't quite catch who took pole in the AM class, I must say, but we'll give you an update on that in approximately 4 minutes time when we do go to the grid. But as our drivers just wind the way on through, the biggest shock in qualifying being Parker Hamilton not getting a strong time on the board in the AM class, and well, beyond that, Kirkland once again the Pro class really just demonstrating how much pace he's got and contesting the front row of the grid versus Ryan Davies. As our drivers make the way on around, we do say hello there to Budget Racing Noob, who's cheering on Darren Sharples, I do believe. Also, we say hello there to we'll say hello once again to Rhys Saunders, who says good job to Davies, and also to Cindy Leeds, so says have the pace for pole, but that didn't quite work out by the looks of things. Well, just whilst I try to get themselves set, if you have been enjoying this season, ladies and gentlemen, you've been enjoying the broadcast and everything else in between, and if you've ever wondered about being a supporter at UK Sim Racing beyond just simply supporting the YouTube channel, well, did you know you can support us via our affiliates? The UK Sim Racing is affiliated with multiple sim racing and real-world motorsport companies, including Sim Racing Coaching, Amazon, and also what is Demon Tweaks. And if you do head to our website, and our website being uksimracing.co.uk, and that website will appear on screen, there it is in its full splendour. Well, in the top right corner of it, there is a link to our Discord. And well, why would you want to join the official UK Sim Racing Discord? Well, firstly, if you ever want to be on the grid for any of our series, alternatively one-off events, it's a mandatory requirement that you do need to be part of the Discord for the purposes of safety briefings in the races, and also for keeping up to date with all the latest information on your chosen event. But also, we're a fantastic community at UK Sim Racing, if we don't mind saying that ourselves, and we try to be modest where we can. And within our Discord, more purposely with regards to our affiliates do provide a number of discount codes which are only available in the UK Sim Racing Discord. And if you do use one of those codes as part of your purchase with one of our affiliates, you get a discount on your purchase, which is an absolute win for you as a consumer, but it's also a win for the wider UK Sim Racing community, because every penny we make from an affiliate purchase, well, we don't use it to get a kickback. We are a non-profit organisation, but instead we invest every purchase and the discounts that come with it and the affiliate status that comes with it into future series as hosted by the UK Sim Racing community and future renditions of what is the GT3 League, and we'll more on that next week in terms of telling you what's coming as of what will be season 12, or have we got something else planned you may be thinking right now? Well, more on that next week. And also the Porsche Cup, which is ongoing. It's currently its 7th season, and season 8 will definitely be coming back, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that in the coming weeks. And we've got plenty more planned for 2023 and onwards as we go from strength to strength for UK Sim Racing. So do remember, a little purchase can go a long way in supporting UK Sim Racing. But right now, I think in terms of our drivers' preparation, what's going to go the longest distance for our drivers is just keeping their head down and getting themselves comfortably set. Well, it's definitely going to be a race of endurance today, and particularly for driver stamina, that is going to be the biggest test here at Phillip Island, as we do see Saunders winding his way off return number 3 and up towards 4 there. And in terms of the conditions for today, as you can see them on the right hand side of your screen, well, as we've moved from what is qualifying to the pre-warm-up, we can see here that currently a track temperature 19 degrees centigrade and 18 degrees centigrade in terms of that ambient temperature, with a bit of cloud over the circuit today, it must be said, but quite high humidity. So these conditions relatively cool with regards to how that circuit is going to feel on tyre life, and I think tyres here will be quite manageable and our drivers will be able to push quite hard. But we'll have to wait and see whether potentially these cooler conditions can also lead to quite a bit of time being required to get the tyres and brakes up to temperature, particularly in the opening stage of the race. And could we see some early instance and offs from our drivers as a result? All that and more we are going to find out about in just under a minute's time, as our drivers right now getting themselves comfortably set. We look to BJ Alvarez there as the Team Sim Racing Chicago driver makes his way through turn 4, 5 and into 6 in the Porsche 9 and 2. And I've got to say, out of all the liveries on the grid, this one stands out the most, and it may be because of the contrast of gold and black, but it is an absolutely marvellous contrast on the number 24 Porsche 992. I'm not picking favourites here with regards to the liveries. All the liveries on the grid are absolutely beautiful to see in all of their splendour, representing all the different teams and personalities, but this one definitely does stand out with its shine there. And well, Alvarez may not have won a race this season, but he's definitely winning with regards to the shine on the livery as he makes his way through turn 10 and in to 11. But as he comes on through, we also see John Doe here, of course, early winner. Remember back at Fuji, taking an absolutely phenomenal win in the AM class. Well, can the TikkiSimSport Kimi driver find a way to make it another win today? Well, the checkered flag is out on this pre-warm-up for the race, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for us to head to the grid. So our drivers make their way onto the grid. This is how they'll line up for our final sprint race of the season. It is Ryan Davies who takes overall pole, and with it elite class pole for TikkiSimSport Kimi. Joined on the front row of the grid, separated by only 6 thousandths of a second, the pro pole sitter of Downforce Racing, Chris Kirkland. Behind him on row number 2 is Casper Brotner for Old Dudes in Cars and Richard Jones for Slow and Steady Racing. It is a pro second row, and that's fantastic to see, with Rhys Saunders, the next elite driver, starting P5 there for Team Year 1, and he's joined on the third row of the grid by the pro of Casper Tunstead for Peak Sim Racing. On row number 4, it's the pro of Darren Sharple to UK Sim Racing Price, who is joined by Tiki Simsport's Alex Hill from the Elite class, with the top 10 being rounded out by Ryan Walker for Satellite Racing, and the Elite drive being joined on that 5th row by Racing Lab Esports and Simon Andre Livingston, your AM pole sitter there. But between him and Lawrence March, who starts P11 on his debut, and a good qualifying session there from the Downforce Racing, it is only 1/10, and he starts P11, and he's joined on where's the 6th row of the grid by Satinder Dinsa for Tiki Simsport, who was a further 7 thousandths behind. Goodness me, it's close inside that top 12. We have behind them on row at number 7, Aaron McGregor for Protect Motorsport, and the pro driver is joined there by the AM of UK Sim Racing Mosses, James Conley. With row at number 8 then going to Daniel Pace for Old Duty Cars, and he's joined by Slow and Steady Racing Stuart Pearson, who starts P16, the pro alongside the AM, and well, definitely a combination which could prove to be full of battling into the opening couple of corners. And then have on row at number 9, Brandon Hay for Newbridge Esports, and the pro driver is joined by fellow pro from Downforce Racing, Kerry Kokoran, who starts P18. Both of them having difficult qualifying sessions, and I would imagine in particular they'll come on strong in the race. And then we have the AM row on row number 10, completing the top 20 of Thomas Barjuk and John Dowell there for TE Simsport Gimme. We've got TPA Racing, Stephen Parker Hamilton starting P21, and the AM driver being joined by his peer, Paul Joseph Cliss, who starts P22 for Olympus Esports. And on the final row of the grid on row number 12, started P23, last but not least, is Team Sim Racing Chicago's BJ Alvarez, who didn't get a lap on the board in qualifying, but again, keep your eyes on him. He may just fight his way through the field very rapidly indeed, and only 1 or 2 mistakes here, and we could see some drivers really shake up the order before we completed the first lap. But as our drivers make their way around on the full formation lap here, we are only now moments away from going racing here today. And well, who is going to be the one who gets the good start? As we do refresh our overlay there, with the circuit map designed to hide itself there, but we don't want it to hide. We want it to be able to keep track of all of our drivers. We look to BJ Alvarez at the back of the field here, and then we do look to in the midst of the field, and will Aaron McGregor make his way up towards turn at number 6 right now. He'll be thinking in his head that his championship battle, and indeed his right to the championship, is on the line. But in the positives, he only has Casper Tunstead 2 places in front of him in the pro class, and with the two of them joint leaders in the pro class going into tonight, and we do know that McGregor, if he doesn't get it right in qualifying, he normally does pull out some wonderful pace in the races and also on strategy, so we have to keep our eyes on what he's able to do under the pressure. But we also look to debutant Lawrence March as he makes his way up the hill here, and we ride on board with the Welshman and the Downforce Racing driver. We'll have company in the pro class in the form of Kirtland and also Kokoran, but he'll know that he's the sole Downforce Racing driver in the AM class, and he'll want to do well here today to try and pick up some points and see where he can set the foundations. Perhaps this is the start of the campaign not going to the next season of GT3 class racing, but either way, everyone will keep their eyes on him as well, because they won't be used to race alongside him. We wish him the best of luck on his debut. But as our drivers make the way around now to the final quarter, it'll be to Ryan Davies to take us to Green Flag Racing, and well, he'll set the pace as we head onto the start finish straight. Lights out and away we go for round number 8 here as Ryan Davies launches off the line and gets a fantastic start compared to the rest of the field behind. Chris Kirtland immediately has to go defensive as well as Casper Rottner takes a look up the inside but can't quite find it. Rhys Saunders meanwhile side by side going into the right hander versus what is there, Richard Jones. Jones holds the outside, he's got to be wary of the fact he will lose momentum into the next corner, backs off as a result, and meanwhile behind Alex Hill now trying to get involved, but you see Casper Tunstead there trying to go around the outside of Jones. He can't quite find it and has to back on the throttle immediately for fear of going deep. And as they head out of turn number 2 up towards 3, further back Stuart Pearson making some early ground as he's found a way past where it's Kerry Kokoran, and now trying to look up the inside of Daniel Pace. They make their way through turn number 3. Pace leaves the door open there, he has to for Pearson's front, and as they come into the braking zone for the hairpin, Everybody Constantina's in. Brandon Hay making some progress as well, gaining 1 place. We really lose Pearson, he rematerialises from the ether in as they head up towards turn number 6. Further behind we've got the Rex team of Bill battling with March here, as we can see Barjot looking up the inside. March having a difficult start, losing 4 places off the line, and therefore the Downforce Racing driver now down but not out as he makes his way through turn number 6 and up towards turn number 8, but now having to really get to terms with the fact he's lost a lot of track position, and this is going to be track position that's hard to get back. But as they make their way up the hill into turn number 9, well now everybody going into line astern, albeit we say that Simon Andre Livingston and James Conley side by side inside. Conley on the right, you're pitching the battle of two Ferraris. Brandon Hayes says, don't mind if I do. He picks off one, he goes to number 2, but he can't quite find it and just misses out on trying to pick them both off. They're a very bold manoeuvre, it must be said, but the number 96 driver's got to dare to dream, and as they make the way through turn number 12, well, that's the first lap complete, and after one lap of racing, it's Ryan Davies who leads ahead of Chris Kirtland P2, followed by Rhys Saunders P3, Casper Rottner P4, Richard Jones P5, followed up by Casper Tunstead P6, Alex Hill P7, Darren Sharples P8, and then it is Ryan Walker P9, head of Aaron McGregor P10, and Satinder Deensa P11. He's your AM leader. He has got Simon Andre Livingston at 7 tenths behind, so Deensa having a phenomenal launch off the line and gaining the lead of the AM class, which he felt he could have taken in qualifying. And meanwhile, your pro leader is still Chris Kirtland P2 overall, and Ryan Davies is still your elite leader as they make their way into this second lap, and immediately now the tone is starting to turn towards more isolated battles. We'd see there Alex Hill up the inside of Tunstead, and we'll show you that overall standings here as I try to make the way through, and also the gains and losses early on in the race. And as I try to make the way around, with Tunstead still on the inside of battling with Hill, and these two fighting very hard right now. Fourth position, and this is overall position. You can understand from Tunstead's perspective, he wants Hill between himself and Sharples to keep Sharples at bay, and also more importantly for the Danishman, when it's Aaron McGregor who's down in P10 right now. So Tunstead, he's letting Jones and Brotner go. Jones could be a factor in the championship, meanwhile Brotner and Kirkland are not. So Tunstead really playing what is the major game here. He's playing the long-term picture, but I just wonder whether Tunstead's perhaps taking a bit more life out of the car than he'd like to by racing right now with an elite driver who just wants to get on through. Well, as they make the way to the end of this lap, we'll have to wait and see where it comes back to haunt him slightly as he heads up towards turn number 1, and as he charges his way on down here. Meanwhile, looking up further back, we've got Brandon Hay trying to pick up another AM driver here in the form of Simon Andre Livingston as he heads over the line and up towards turn number 1 for the third time of asking, getting very close. And that BMW, will say what you will about it in the corners right now, I think that Britain has set this car up to make this car work as much as possible on the straights in terms of top end speed. It's getting very close to the Ferrari, which in turn is very strong in terms of acceleration, and as they come through 2 and up towards 3, well, right now Hay tucked in behind, can't get close enough this time around, but Hay is trying to make that progress. He's already gained 1 place in class at 4 overall, and the biggest loser at the start of this race really is right now March, who's dropped 7 places overall, and what a very painful start to his UKSimRacing GT3 League career. But again, we've all got to start somewhere, and right now it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish, and his target will be to find his way back. But meanwhile, as we see Hay gets it very close, we ride on board with the new Bridge Eastwood BMW M4, and we can see here Livingston right now so close that Hay could think about trying to go for a lunge. But if he's going to do it, it will be into turn number 10, and well, I think Livingston will be thinking it's coming in. Oh goodness me, Hay deciding to brake much later than Livingston there. Now that was very close to call, but that shows you the confidence the BMW driver has in that BMW right now, and Livingston just does not feel as happy with how the car is set up there through turn number 9, but sitting under brake, and with this Ferrari, we know it can be very unsteady on worn tyres, but we're only 3 laps in, and we wouldn't expect the tyres to already be falling apart this early on, albeit the Ferrari does get through its tyres very fast, and as they made their way through turn number 11 and 12 and on to another lap. Right now Livingston under pressure from what is currently behind as we switch back to the overall standings. We'll switch back to the class standings here from the overall standings, and Livingston right now with Conley closing as they make their way through turn number 1, and James Conley here definitely now trying to come back versus the Racing Lab Esports AM driver as they head into the next braking zone. And well, Livingston's just not happy with the way the car's handling. He's struggling for these corners right now. These long sweeping corners just seem to be going against the grain of the car, and Conley is having a time with it. As meanwhile off the road there into turn number 2's gravel trap is Thomas Barjuk as the Briton makes his way back on, and well, the privateer, they're definitely having a bit of a moment. We have had a couple of incidents at the start of this race, which we will take a look back at very shortly, but the thing we're going to take a look back at first and foremost is the green flag, and in particular what happened to Lawrence March in terms of him falling down the order at the start of this race. So as we went green flag racing, we take a look at the blimp camera there, and well, March is going very slowly. It's a bit of a distant camera, but you can see him making his way into turn number 1, and on the left in there, one of his rivals, and March is having a really slow start. You can see everybody going around the outside of March. Well, I think might have just been caught out by the starting procedure, and in the end, just no momentum. Now, I wonder if he perhaps short shifted a gear, and that's what's led to it. Something's gone wrong for March, whether it's a reaction or alternatively just the wrong gear at the wrong time. But either way, it's not worked out. And meanwhile, a bit later on lap number 1, we had an incident for BJ Alvarez, and this is what happened to the Team Sim Racing Chicago driver as he came down through turn number 9 into 10 on the brakes as the TPA racing car on the inside, and contact there with Stephen Park Hamilton, and will that send Alvarez on around. And on lap number 2, we've had an incident for Kerry Corcoran, and what happened to the Downforce Racing driver, this was going up through turn number 8 into 9, takes a lot of apex curve on turn number 8, and that unsettles the car into 9, and oh goodness me, a nasty knock to the barrier there, and for Corcoran that's damage right inside suspension and an immediate tow to the pits from what we understand. As we now return to your live racing pictures, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of battle since we stepped away, when we immediately come back to the splendid battle here between Livingston and Conley trying to go around the outside, and what we said about the fact that Livingston were really struggling for pace right now in this race. Daniel Pace also queuing up behind, and Stuart Pearson, and Pearson will want Pace out the way to get involved as Conley there takes a quick sneak peek to the inside of turn number 6, not quite able to find fruit out of that manoeuvre, but now saying to Livingston, look, if you're going to carry on at this pace, I will find a way through whether you like it or not. And I think now the Norwegians really got to dig in here, or potentially looking at letting this go and trying to find his way back into the racing strategy. But as they come up through turn number 9, well, I don't think Livingston's going to let this one go, given the battle for the championship. But onto the brakes here, you can just see right now the gap between himself and Hay opening up quite significantly from quarter to quarter as they roll off a turn at number 11. And when we look back from the rear of the lead Ferrari in this battle for P2 in the AM class, and well, Conley there getting closer and closer by the apex. They wind their way up onto lap number 6 they go, and will can Conley find a way for his 2 attempts back here on the drag race on the start from the straight. It's a short straight compared to other circuits we've visited this season. You can see there Conley getting close with 1.5 tenths, but not quite able to feather out the move as they make their way through the right hand and up towards turn number 2 they go. And as they wind on in here, right now Conley having to wait and see how close he's getting, and Conley really eager to make a move, but he just cannot find a way to get into the mix here as they make the way through turn number 3. As they come up towards the hairpin, meanwhile looking from them 2 behind, and Will Pearson right now has got a bit of time to try and hunt down Daniel Pace. Meanwhile March is getting closer and closer, and right now definitely on the charge, and Will March has already picked off 1 place back in the form of what was John Doble, and now trying to make some further progress as they make the way through in the left-hander of turn number 6. In fact, that progress being made versus Barjuk, we should say, with Barjuk running off as we saw earlier on what was lap number 4 going through turn number 2. So as they head up the hill, no change between these guys right now. But meanwhile, looking from the AM class, let's keep in mind we've got 2 other classes on the grid. We look to your race leader here of Ryan Davies, and Will Davies right now not being allowed to break away from Chris Kirkland behind. And I wonder whether the 85 driver might be either balancing this race or under genuine pressure from Kirkland. And what we mean by this is perhaps right now Davies feels as though he can run with just a 5 tenths of a second advantage over Kirkland, and not feel as though he's got to push any harder given the difficulty of overtaking at this circuit. Alternatively, if Kirkland right now is keeping Davies at his maximum, then I think Kirkland will be trying to make what will be a GT3 League history in becoming the first what is non-top class driver to take an overall win. And well, he's been close multiple times, but can he make it happen? That'll be the big question as they make the way on through turns 3 and 4. And you remember that Kirkland in the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya with that 2nd place finish, it was a phenomenal finish, and the first time we have seen a non-elite class driver or equivalent top class driver take an overall podium. Well, he's trying to do that again. In fact, it is the first time, as he missed out on the opportunity at Motorland Aragon in round number 3, if my memory serves me correctly. But as we come towards the end of this 10th minute of racing here, things definitely right now settling more down into what will be the more strategic approach to this race in terms of drivers right now focusing on running behind their rivals and trying to save a little bit of fuel and thinking about when's the right time up here. And well, with this early transition, we now potentially start to see some drivers really thinking about going early on the pits. But meanwhile, one driver right now who won't be thinking about pit stops, it's Barjuk, as he makes his way, looking around the outside here versus what is clear into turn number 8. Side by side they go. The Rexy-mobile on the right, meanwhile be the Empathy Sports car on the left. And as the camera turns on around, Barjuk's got the inside into turn 9. Klitz's going to try and hold it around the outside. To be fair, you can defend on the outside of 9, because it's a downhill descent into a right-hander at 10. Great racing between these two as they come down onto the brakes. Alvarez will start to close up. Well, in fact, that'll be Parker Hamilton who starts to close up on this, and Alvarez in turn. It will be Alvarez a further 20 seconds back to Park Hamilton's 2 seconds. And as they head off of the corner, well, right now, Cliff's doing very well to defend here as he comes down through turn number 12 to complete the lap. Goes a little bit deep there for Apex, and that's going to cost him a bit of momentum out the final corner. You can see already a 10th gain by Barja as they head to the start-finish line. And as they make the way into turn number 1, Cliff's now defending for his right to lead this position in the battle for P10. Barja looking there as they do almost trade a little bit of paint going into turn number 1. But as they do, Barja having to back off there, knowing the outside's not going to run to the inside of turn number 2. There's just not enough road to be able to do it. And as they come through to, Cliff's doing very well to dig in. As they come out of the corner and on towards the next one. Meanwhile, we do look from them to what is Daniel Pays. In fact, we've got a car off the road there at turn number 4, and that's Stuart Pearson, who's had it all go very, very wrong at the turn 4 hairpin. Now, how exactly that's happened, that's a question we'll try and answer very shortly, but the key point being that March has moved past Pearson as they made the way out of the corner now and onwards towards the second half of the lap. And as they charge on through, meanwhile, we do get a replay of what exactly happened for Pearson, and here is the replay coming up immediately now. Going into the braking zone for turn number 4, and a little bit of a squirrel moment on the brakes. And what we mean by that, you could see the car wobbling under braking. I think Pearson may have just triggered the ABS, and the car not wanting to retard or slow, as we say, into the braking zone as much as he would like, and conscious of making contact there with Daniel Pays and having to pull the car to the right. And for Pearson, definitely a bit of a moment there for the slow and steady racing driver. He's got himself back in the hunting already. Meanwhile, from then, we've also had a bit of an incident for Paul Joseph Clears. He's gone well off the circuit there, and that is at turn number 10. We're parked up in what is the grass and getting the car back onto circuit now. But what exactly happened to the Olympus esports driver? Well, we take a look. Well, this was a battle with Barja, albeit we cut away from it and it looked so Chris was fine. Runs a bit wide there out turn number 6 into the gravel. So a mistake there, which has cost him a lot of time. Rejoined, and coming up behind was Parker Hamilton, who looked around the outside into turn number 8, gets it done. And then for Chris a little bit later on in this lap, well, his woes were only compounded to as he came through 9. I think the dirt on the tyres there making the car very unsteady through turn number 9, plus plenty of apex. Go rear of the car, letting go. Goes through the barrier there in terms of what was the styrofoam board, and in the end just onto the grass, and that's where we picked him up there, pointing up the wrong way in the grass. And as he returns the circuit down into P9 right now, meanwhile we look back to our live pictures, and in particular we look back up to Chris Kirkland here, who is continuing to push hard versus what is Ryan Davies. As meanwhile on the YouTube chat we do say hello to Sean Cranny Swash, who says got John Hindau in one ear VIR and of course the other Phillip Island, and that is in reference to the ongoing IMSA race currently, if my memory serves me correctly, at VIR in the United States of America. And meanwhile, as we do look to Kirkland here, your pro leader chasing down Ryan Davies. I think Kirkland here just has the pace to his hands. I think that Davies, by comparison, has not feeling comfortable with the way Kirkland's pushed him. As we ride on board with the pro leader, with the American right now trying to get involved versus Britain as they make the way out to turn number 2 and down towards 3 and 4 they go. Saunders is closed up as well, and remember we said about the fact that whilst the Porsche may be the strongest car in terms of qualifying pace, don't count out the other machines. And Kirkland looks on the inside, he's got the door open. Davies in the end just defending in the middle road, feeling as though he'll be safe there, and Kirkland's got to stop the car eventually, otherwise they'll make contact. But right now Davies having to position for defence as they come through turn number 6 and off of the cambered left-hander they go. We're 14 minutes through this race, still plenty of time to go, but we are nearing the pit window, normally that pit window opening at around the 17 to 18 minute mark and lasting all the way up to the 38th minute. So it does provide a lot of opportunities and variety on strategy, and I wouldn't be surprised if Downforce Racing right now are looking at the way the field is spread and are thinking about getting Kirkland in as soon as possible, or at least doing the opposite of what Davies does on the first couple of laps in that pit window, for the simple reason I think Kirkland has got the pace here to lead this race, and he could leapfrog into lead on strategy. The only driver he's got to be worried about is Saunders behind, who also has really come alive in terms of pace and relative pace right now. The fastest driver on the circuit over the last couple of laps has been out of this top 3, Kirkland, with Saunders now closed up, with the fact that Kirkland is gradually being stopped in terms of pushing his pace onwards. But also keep in mind there's other drivers in the field who are showing a lot of pace, and we'll give a couple of names. Ryan Walker, P4 in the elite class, really starting to come alive with pace. also with Alex Hill, and I think a good number of pro drivers as well, so it does look as though Davies starting to bunch this field up, and well, is Davies potentially trying to fuel save here and doing a lot of it in order to give himself strategic options, and if so, this is a bold strategy from Davies, and I think it could work out, but he's got to make sure that Kirtland can't find his way through. But here they come into turn 4, Kirtland on the inside, Davies on the outside, through the right hander they go, and Chris Kirtland is going to take the overall lead in this race, and look at Rhys Saunders, the door was forced open, and now as Saunders makes his way out towards turn number 6, he's starting to grow in confidence here. Casper Rottner and Richard Jones behind, but Davies loses the lead, and well, as we look to those overall standings, well, your eyes do not deceive you, ladies and gents, we have a pro leading here at Phillip Island, and right now the elite class running P2, P3, and Davies and Saunders, I think, ready to battle. As they make the way through turn number 9 and up towards turn 10. And we can see Brotner and also Richard Jones starting to get involved here. I think they also want overall podium opportunities as well. I don't think they're quite done, but meanwhile we look from them to a battle between an am and a pro here in the form of Daniel Paes, the Portuguese defending on the inside there at turn number 9, and meanwhile March goes very deep. McGregor's going to come on through, and McGregor will be grateful for that as Pearson tries to go around the outside of March at turn number 10, but overcooks it. March defends in the middle of the road. I think Pearson there 9, he couldn't turn in, as otherwise he would have simply gone into the side of March's car, and well, it's an opportunity to go for a cutback potentially at turn number 10, but you've got to set it up right, but also given how tight it is at the corner apex as the driver just positions the car in the middle of the road, a cutback becomes nigh impossible, and instead you have to focus your attention on the run down the start finish straight. But you can see that Pearson chasing after March in the battle for P4 in the AM class, and well, then they've got the battle for P6 in the pro class just in front of them, and well, these two class battles interdicting one another and definitely shaking up the field here and setting us up for what is going to be a very interesting pit stop window of this race, where I think a number of drivers will all be thinking about potentially trying to jump over one another. As meanwhile we're hearing there's been a couple of further instances, and BJ Alvarez is had to be towed to the pits, and also for Stephen Parker Hamilton, 2 AM drivers are had to be towed to the pits, and I think we have a return for the TPA racing driver, and again it's been another difficult day for Parker Hamilton, and the difficulties continue this season. But meanwhile, as we look here to Pearson at chasing after March, they make their way up towards turn at number 6. Meanwhile, we look from them to behind, and John Doe will starting to creep closer to this battle, thinking about getting involved as well. He's currently in what is P6 in the AM class, looking at potential top 5 here today as a minimum. But as they weave their way up towards turn at number 9, we can tell you that right now in the lead of the AM class is this man, Satinder Dinsa, as the Tiki Simsport Toa driver, looking very comfortable out front. And in terms of that relative class gap, as we do update the standings there to show you the class-based standings now for a degree of time, you can see that gap now to 4.1 seconds over ahead of Simon Andre Livingston, and well, for Dinsa it is all coming to fruition, and it does seem as though Livingston just not quite on the pace by comparison as Dinsa pushing on. But meanwhile behind we can see here the battle between Connolly and Livingston still ongoing. They're caught up behind what is Brandon Hay, the pro driver, as the 2 Ferrari drivers here now starting to find their pace, and Hay by comparison not in a comfortable place in terms of pace. As meanwhile off the road there, that is, I do believe, Alex Hill, who's had a bit of a moment coming through turn number 2, and when the Tiki Simsport driver rejoins, but he drops a long way down the overall order. He was at the time in what was, I do believe, at P3 in the elite class, so therefore he drops to the back of the elite class as well, but he's fallen and now he's got to try and recover. But as he does so, well, meanwhile behind he's now got the 2 pro battlers of Paes and McGregor closing up behind quite rapidly, and March as well. But everybody starting to concertina together here in the battle for just being inside or outside the top 10, and it does mean that we can rub our hands together in anticipation as Hill goes a bit deep there running wide, and as he does so, Late's going to release Paes and McGregor on through. So right now Paes will be thinking, okay, I've got that done, and he'll look in his rear view mirror and think, damn, I haven't been able to find a way to keep McGregor at bay. But as they make the way on through turn at number 9 and up towards 10, well, right now the Portuguese here under pressure. You can see McGregor really trying to get under the skin of the Porsche 992 driver, but the old dudes in cars driver has seen that before and doesn't wilt to the pressure. But as they come on through the left hand of turn number 11, we get clarification there from J Wings to say that Zander, aka Alex Hill, does have a crooked rear right tyre, and that explains everything. Do appreciate that, J Wings, and that will explain why he's had to come into the pit lane now for repair work. And well, as the drivers made the way through, we are into the pit window of this race now. We have had a pit stop from Stuart Pearson. He's been the first driver to pull his strategic pit stop, and well, who else will follow? That will be the question. We presume that Hill will essentially take his strategic pit stop as well, as Paes loses the rear of the car through turn number 1. It's into the barrier at turn number 2's entry, and Daniel Paes there with the rear of the car letting go, falls off the circuit, and now that is going to be a tow to the pits, and it's a disastrous one for the battle in the pro class. And will we take a look back at what exactly happened to Daniel Paes? and we ride on board in particular, and this is what happened to Pace. He made his way through, the car just letting go there, and rear tyre wear started to creep in, as I do believe Aaron McGregor went wide at the subsequent turn 2 exit, but for Daniel Pace, a disaster there as we return to live pictures, and there you can see the aftermath of the car in the pit lane. But meanwhile, looking from pro drivers who've got it wrong to one pro driver right now who seems to be getting it constantly right. Well, here's the American in the 112 of Kirtland as he makes his way past the pit lane entry, and on the final corner he goes. He leads another lap here as we go on to lap number 15. Still 25 minutes on the clock plus the final lap, and meanwhile behind Rhys Saunders looking for the elite class lead here as they make their way into turn 1. Side by side they go. It's Davies on the right, it's Saunders on the left, and Saunders will take the inside, and that will be the lead, the elite class, albeit can Davies find a way back? I don't think so. Saunders sets up the car to defend hard on the inside into turn number 2. It's smooth moves from the 64, and as he makes his way out to the left-hander, it's a lead taken, but now can he close down Kirtland for the overall lead? But as they head up towards what is turn number 4, rolling their way through left-hander, we have got Aaron McGregor into the pit lane, so he's decided to call his pit stop. Also Daniel Pace, well, understandably he'll be taking his strategic pit stop with that instant only moments ago. But right now a couple more drivers adventuring a pit stop here, but not too many, not what we expected in terms of immediate pit stops and reaction from drivers. But McGregor, I think he's got to throw caution to the wind in the pro class and invest in that pit stop early, as otherwise I think this race is only going to fall away from him. And well, with Casper Tunstead currently affecting a lap down in P7, McGregor's got nothing to lose versus his main rival in the Pro Championship. But meanwhile, as we do see Saunders starting to break away from Davies, well, Davies there getting it wrong through turn 9, goes a bit deep into 10, and as a result now, as Casper Brotner, the second place pro driver, right behind him, and Jones is a further 1.5 seconds back. Well, I don't know what the pros have had for breakfast this morning, but I can tell you one thing, it's fired them up a plenty, as we do see Davies making his way through turn number 12, and Brotner just behind, and then Jones a bit further back here, the slow and steady racing driver, looking for his first pro podium of the season as he makes his way on to the next lap. And we're a bit further back, we do have Ryan Walker here, who's trying to get one back for the elite drivers versus the pros, as he chases after Darren Sharples. Into turn number 1 they go, thinks about it here, but the satellite racing driver not quite able to find a way through, as we can also see that Lawrence March is into the pit lane. So look at my commentary booth window, so another pit stop on the cars. John Doble as well has come in, but they've come in respectively from P4 and P8 in the AM class, and we'll have to wait and see where that puts them in the orders. Daniel Pace has left the pit lane after the pit work. He is a lap down in the pro class now, P8, and we'll focus here on Walker versus what is Sharples making the way through turn 3 up towards 4. More, it's going to be Walker here, or I think he's going to have to wait a little bit longer, but the next time around, if he's this close until the start finish straight, well, I think that he'll be certainly looking to try and force that move before we get to what will be the second half of the race truly and fully underway. We'll be able to say that we are now into the second half, as that's the car off the road, and that is Richard Jones, who's gone round at turn number 6. And what exactly has happened for the slow and steady racing driver? It's disaster at the midpoint, and here is the replay. So making his way out to turn at number 4 and up towards 60, he went into the braking zone, going into left-hander, turns in quite deeply there in terms of he was wide on corner entry, and I think he's overcooked it on the steering angle, and in the end the car has just said no, I can't turn that hard, and the rears let go as a result. The number 99 driver there definitely being called out at turn number 6, and now getting himself back up to speed, but that's put him back to P4 in the pro class and down to P8 overall, and definitely a moment which he'll be kicking himself for as he comes into the pit lane here, and I think he'll want an opportunity to cool the tyres down, and the best way to do so is by taking a pit stop, and the car's stationary. He most likely will change some tyres as well. As we return to live pictures, and here we do look to the battle for what is effectively P5 overall, as Sharples loses the rear of the car through turn 1 in a similar way to Daniel Pace, and right now turn 1 catches out another Porsche 992. The UKSimRacing Price driver not having to tow to the pits, or at least thinking he doesn't as he rejoins, but definitely right there a nightmare moment, and I believe the 777 driver, as he stays aside for Satinder Dinsa, the AM leader makes his way on through, and Sharples right now knowing that the Pro Championship crown is definitely in the balance, and if he can get this car home, and if he can finish right now just behind Brandon Hay, well, he and Brandon Hay will close up to the top 2, and we could have a 4-way level fight in the Pro Championship at our season finale, and well, goodness me, would that be a sight to see. But meanwhile, as our drivers continue to push on here, this is definitely proven to be a Phillip Island circuit that is catching out many. And as we do see Stephen Parker Hamilton there in the YouTube chat, we say hello to, and again, we do definitely feel for with the fact he showed a lot of pace in practice, but in qualifying and in the race, it's all just gone wrong. And saying there, I have no idea what was wrong with the car setup, couldn't push at all like I could in qualifying, and well, we're sorry to hear that, Stephen, and also that you won't be able to join us at Bathurst, but still know that you definitely have been one of those drivers to watch out for this season. And well, the results haven't gone your way, but we've been absolutely enjoying those moments where we've been able to show that outright pace with TPA Racing. But meanwhile, as we do see Sharples making his way into the pits, Brandon Hay comes on through and he stays out for another lap. Here's Kirtland Brotler into the pit lane, but Hay decides to go long. So the Pro Class right now putting the pit stops into the positions when they need them to. But could we potentially see a shake-up here of Brandon Hay opting to go as long as he dares possible? But I wonder here whether the BMW with its more stable chassis by comparison with that front engine rear-wheel drive drivetrain just giving Hay the confidence here to go longer. And well, Kirkland leaves the pit lane. He's not your overall leader right now, we do believe, but in terms of track position, but he will be your overall leader when we're all said and done here with regards to strategy, unless Davies can pull off some magic in the pits. And well, Sharples also leaving the pit lane. Jones has made his way back out, but keep in mind that Sharples right now will be a lot closer to Jones after Jones' spin. And Casper Brotner has taken what will be, well, goodness me, in fact, that is not Casper Brotner here, as we have Casper Brotner off the road there at turn number 1. The Old Dudes in Cars driver from Denmark. It's gone wrong for an Old Dudes in Cars right now. Both Pays and Brotner in the Pro Class, both having dire turn 1s in this race. And well, what exactly happened to Casper Brotner is the question, and well, here is the answer. Trying to speed his way out of the pit lane and just puts a tyre on the grass there, and a nasty shunt to the inside barrier. So very eager to leave the pit lane, but that eagerness has caught him out as he's then falling into the gravel trap and had to turn the car around before it's become stuck. And well, for the Danishman, it's definitely been a pit exit not to remember, as thankfully he's been able to rejoin safely, but definitely there a little bit too eager to pull the trigger, and understandably that's where it's all gone wrong. But meanwhile, into the pits has come a number of more drivers, as we do show you the overall standings. And well, Rhys Saunders stays out there. We are Davies, Walker, Dienster, Hay and Connolly all into the pit lane. But where does this leave Kirtland as he makes his way out to the final corner? Davies is gradually starting to leave his pit box, but I think Chris Kirtland here will simply retake the lead. It's going to be close, but in fact Kirtland there, it's going to be close here versus Davies, as Davies coming up to speed, and in the end Kirtland will take the effective, we believe, the effective lead of this race back, unless Rhys Saunders can pull off a little bit of a surprise on the strategy. But Kirtland back at Davies, not by much, goes very deep into turn 2, and I think there in his eagerness to get ahead of Davies, carrying even more speed than he would have liked. But as they make their way through it, Neil Brandon Hay battling side by side with Darren Sharples as Hay has left the pit lane, and the Newbridge eSports driver making his way out turn 1 into 2, and meanwhile just in front there's Sharples in return, and Darren Sharples now holds the position over Hay, and well, nothing between them here as Brandon Hay trying to get back onto the pro podium. Behind him, however, Simon Andre Livingstone's looking up the inside into turn number 3. It's the battle of the Ferrari versus the BMW, and as they make the way out into turn number 4, side by side on the brakes they go. Behind them the same for Connolly and Pearson, and as they make the way on the brakes, where it's going to be Livingstone falls back behind Hay, and Pearson does get ahead of Connolly, and now Stuart Pearson up in the P4 in the AM class there, in what really was a brave move to get it done, knowing that the battle in front of him was playing out as well. And Rhys Saunders into the pit lane right now as they wind their way up towards what will be turns 8 and 9 here. And Rhys Saunders yet could leave the pit lane and find himself battling with Chris Kirtland. In fact, he's already leaving the pit lane as Saunders, as Kirtland's coming through the final corner. Well, this is going to be incredibly close as we look to the blimp camera here. And where is Chris Kirtland? He's nowhere to be seen. And Rhys Saunders with a 15-second pit stop. Surely he has not been fuel saving that much. That is an incredibly short stop for Rhys Saunders. And you can see that gap. It's 4 seconds almost, with then Chris Kirtland P2 ahead of Davies. But right now Saunders, as Kirtland goes very deep into turn 2 once again, but Saunders has gambled on the short stop, and well, if he's made this work on strategy, it's going to be another masterclass in return. However, it hasn't worked out from Saunders. Well, he may be getting Okayama vibes from season 10, and indeed some of you may remember on his debut at Okayama, where he opted to take a pit stop that was 6 seconds shorter than the rest of the field, and then had to spend 2 laps fuel saving in order to get the car to the finish line, and in the end losing all the places he gained and losing some extra returners change. And well, right now we'll have to see if the Team Year 1 driver's got it right today. But Kirtland right now will be looking at this and thinking, how on earth have I been leapfrogged for the overall lead? And well, as we focus back on the class positions and making their way up towards turn number 9 they go. Davies still not out of this yet in terms of trying to go hunting for that P2 overall. But meanwhile, side by side here for Aaron McGregor versus Lawrence March as they make their way through turn number 6. We can see there Kerry Kokorin cheering on March as he makes his way on through and up towards the next braking zone they go. But as they do, the Protect Motorsport driver here doing everything right in terms of McGregor to put the pressure on to the Welshman. But into the braking zone they go up the inside, and now I think March opting to let it go, respecting the fact they're in two different classes, and therefore there's no points. It's only pride on the line for beating a driver of another class. As they come through turn at number 10, McGregor's next target will be Casper Brotner, who's only 1.7 seconds up the road, and it will be for class position. Now with P5 in the Pro class, will be fighting for as they make the way down through 12 into 13. And through the left-hander they go. As they come off the corner here, will we see any change or not? Well, nose to tail they go. The Porsche March right behind as they head in towards the next braking zone. But will March go for it, or will he just simply tuck in? I think he does the latter here and waits to see if he can go hunting after the likes of Pearson, Conley and Livingston, who are 5 seconds up the road, but not too far away and still within arm's reach should they start to squabble themselves. And speaking of which, here is Simon Andre Livingston, and he's currently holding to P2 in the AM class, and his target of what is, that's Satinder Dinsa a long way out the road as Hay goes very deep there into the hairpin, I think avoiding the contact at the back of Sharples' car. But meanwhile, we've still got a battle between March and McGregor. McGregor went very deep at turn 2 off camera as we just cut away, and March has found his way back ahead, and as he heads all the way up towards what will be turn number 6, we do say hello there to Lawrence Marsh, who's cheering on Lawrence March there. And well, I do wonder if there's a little bit of play on names or whatnot, but meanwhile, as they make their way up towards turns 8 and 9, it's a strong race. And well, we can see a lot of people there, such as Budget Racing do, saying March just needs to let McGregor pull him up to the next set of cars here, and I think that would be the wise thing to do, as McGregor does seem to be the faster driver when he's getting it right. But as they come down towards turn number 9 and 10, as they make their way on through the corner. Meanwhile, we look to Darren Sharples, who's got Brandon Hay right behind him, and in fact we ride forward and look back from the rear of the UKSimRacing Porsche 992 driver here, as he's still got 13 minutes plus the final lap to go. And here comes Hay as he looks around the outside, and can Sharples force him to stay behind as they come through the corner? Well, Hay's got the nose edge, Sharples in a very tight line. I think this is only going one way, and Brandon Hay does the impossible, which is going around the outside of turn number 1, and the Porsche drivers just do not look safe anymore through the opening corner. We've seen multiple Porsche 992s get it wrong and be into the wall at turn number 1, and I think now the tyre life is going against them as Brandon Hay sweeps on through in a P3 in the Pro class. His next target is Richard Jones, who is 11 seconds up the road. It's going to be a tall ask, but can he do it? That's the question. Meanwhile, Stuart Pearson's still trying to find his way past James Conley in the battle for P3 in the AM class. And again, another BMW M4 driver who does seem to really feel as though he can go all in here in terms of opportunities. As we say hello to Cy Anthony in the YouTube chat there. And Cy Anthony, a Super eSports driver who we do love to see at race and has been on the grid for previous seasons. And well, everyone of you who tuned in to what was, if my memory serves me correctly, season 8, his legendary strategic battle at Road Atlanta between himself and Sam Congreve, will know that it was all about strategy on that day, and a fantastic one. And we've seen strategy play out here today, potentially for Rhys Saunders, who's just put in the fastest lap of the race, a 27.128. Now, I will say this, if Rhys Saunders has underfueled that car, he's not showing any signs of feeling as though he's going to run out of fuel, because all the other pit stops we have seen here today, the second fastest one has been Stuart Pearson on a 15-second and 15.02 second pit stop. For Rhys Saunders at 14.55, the team year 1 driver has absolutely fuel saved that first stint, and right now, well, he's got 3.6 seconds to play with, and he's put the fastest lap on the board. Can he just simply get this to the end, or will we see Davies and Walker close up? And we'll have to wait and see. But Saunders right now adding his name to the books of a strategic masterclass here, and we saw it at Le Mans, and he's doing it again. But meanwhile, Chris Kirkland, who is throwing everything at chasing Saunders down, and that last lap he lost 7.5 tenths to Saunders, and Saunders just seems to be in a class of his own at the front of the field, with Ryan Davies eager to make it second place overall versus Kirkland, but Kirkland trying to once again make it another second place overall to add to his second place. That was the circuit of Barcelona, Catalonia earlier on this season. But as they weave their way off of turn number 12, 10 minutes on the clock almost now as our time in Australia here comes towards the end of the first part of the double header, but still plenty of races to come. And well, we do look to see Andre Livingston, who's still caught up behind Sharples and Hay, but at the same time will feel as though he's got Connolly away now by 2 seconds, and this is buying the Ferrari driver some time. But Livingston definitely in that first stint really struggling for progress compared to his rivals. He's been able to stem the tide of difficulty, but it'd be interesting to know what exactly was wrong for the Ferrari driver in the opening 5 to 6 laps, because the pace of the car just fell through the floor by comparison with what he'd been able to do in qualifying as he comes to return at number 1. Meanwhile, Brandon Hay still under a little bit of pressure. Sharples after making that move early on, as we're hearing that Casper Tunstead has had to be towed to the pits once again. And well, if so, that is a disaster for Tunstead. While our joint championship leaders and McGregor not too far much better off in P6, but right now Sharples and also Hay are all starting to make major ground in the championship here as they head in towards turn number 4. Well, Hay versus Sharples. I think we're going to see Sharples trying to come back in very shortly. They have got some traffic in front of them, which is a lap down, the form of Calist and Doble in the battle of a P7 in the AM class. So this could potentially work against the Britain of Hay as he makes his way through turn number 6 and up the hill he goes. But he'll be hoping that traffic is quite obliging, but we'll have to wait and see as they weave the way up. And meanwhile, off camera, we're hearing that Ryan Davis has found his way past Chris Kirtland for what is P2 overall. We will get a look back at that and replay that very shortly. But here we continue to focus on the battle. And in fact, we've got Chris Kirtland there taking a very adventurous run off the road at turn number 12 and catching the car in time. But the downforce racing driver might be starting to struggle with tyre life here in the late stages. But looking from him back to what is the battle between Brandon Hay and Darren Sharples. Well, now the traffic has definitely come up in front as we've got John Doble trying to look for the move on Clist into turn number 1. It's going to be a drag race here, and this could be 3 wide down the start finish straight. Clist going to put the car in the middle of the road. Meanwhile, Hayes going to look up the inside. Well, in fact, it'll be Clist on the racing line. Doble's going to be pinned. Flashing lights there for Hayes, saying, look, I'm coming through, don't turn in. And he gets the 2 of them. Meanwhile, for Sharples, he's got to back off, and he's still got the 2 AM drivers in front of him. And now, Doble versus Clist. It's going to be Doble around the outside. 2 wide, they're going to turn number 2, but the Canadian here knows it tapers off quite aggressively and just catches the car before it winds its way into the grass. But John Doble now does have what is there, Sharples on his inside. I think Doble's got to let this go rather than fight. He's then got the P2 AM driver coming up behind, obviously Andre Livingston. And for Doble, it's a snap to the right side there. He's missed his braking point and throws the car off circuit to avoid contact of other drivers. Well, it's a valiant sacrifice there for the TE Simsport Kimmy driver, but it's not the way I've wanted it to go. And that was a nightmare situation for Doble, and now it's going to become an even bigger nightmare for Paul Joseph Clist, albeit he doesn't have to worry about cars behind him. But Doble there throwing the car to the right, and now it does look as though it'll be Clist who's left alone for P7 in the AM class. We'll take a look back at that if we can very shortly, but meanwhile as the drivers make the way and throw, definitely a nasty moment. We're seeing the tightness of this circuit and also the difficulty for overtaking rearing its ugly head when it comes to finding your way past cars that are a lap down as well. Well, everyone's safely negotiating that in the end, but it took a sacrifice from Doble to do so. But as they make the way on through and in towards another lap, well, we look to at Rhys Saunders as he makes his way on down towards another turn at number 4, and as he runs his way on through here, the gap between himself and Ryan Davies standing at 4.6 seconds, and I can tell you one thing, Saunders is not slowing down. That last lap, a 27.35, 2/10 of the previous fastest lap, he said, but Saunders is absolutely tearing his way around here. And well, I can see there Martin Tillin saying in the YouTube chat, there's no way that Saunders has saved that much. Well, if so, then this right now is a absolutely phenomenal demonstration. But again, let's not sing his praises too much before this is done. Ryan Davies now knowing that his only target will be Saunders, and how did Davies get the move done versus Chris Kirtland for P2 overall? Well, we will take a look back at that move, and here it is. As they made the way out of turn at number 6, I think there Kirtland having a bit of a slow run out of turn 6 and opting to back off there. And a bit later on lap, it went wrong for Kirtland in terms of a mistake. And well, we'll stay with this replay and see what happened for Chris Kirtland. He made his way up through turn number 9, dirty air in effect now. And on his brakes down the hill, rear car absolutely fine. So I think in the end it would have been just simply the dirty air coming out of the final corner. In fact, we do now get a ride on board here with the downforce racing driver for the fly. We caught this at the tail end. So going into turn number 12, turns in, keeps the throttle in, a bit of dirty air there, and the car just starting to step away. Get the throttle planted, but just gradually brought it back on, dropped the gear as well, and that will not have helped the rear of the car with the rear tyres lighting up. So Curtin there being a bit bold in terms of his rejoin, but still getting it back on the circuit eventually. But Chris Curtin definitely having a moment. And meanwhile, what exactly happened to John Doble is the big question, as he had to avoid contact at turn number 4 on the previous lap. Well, this is what happened to him as he made his way under brake into turn 4. And missed his braking point by about 20 meters. You can see they just snaps the car to the right immediately, not wanting to hit the rear of Sharples' car. And with the TD Simsport Kimi driver there, I think when Sharples looks back at that after the race today, I think he'll be walking down the paddock and shaking the hand of John Doble, knowing that if Doble had not thrown the car to the right after missing his braking point, the two of them would have been in the grass, and potentially it could have been the three of them if Clist had turned in and found that the two cars there on his inside. But as we look back to your live pictures here, ladies and gentlemen, 5 minutes remaining now at the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit here in the town of Ventnor on Phillip Island in Australia. And as they make their way on around here right now, Ryan Daly is still trying to chase down Rhys Saunders for the win in this race. But meanwhile, elsewhere, things have calmed down from the boiling point earlier on of battling, and it does look as though the intersection of the Pro and the AM class has led to those battles now just gradually subsiding to a time. So what starts to go through the mind of drivers at this point? Well, I think tyre wear and tyre management is perhaps the biggest factor that everybody right now is going to be very aware of, and the BMW M4 drivers here today seem to be in a class of their own in terms of they can use the tyres a lot more aggressively. They've got the stability of the German mainframe in order to be able to do so. Meanwhile, the Porsche 992s around here, and Casper Bronner being one of them, looking very vulnerable in the late stage of this race, particularly for the sweeping corners such as turn number 1. And Stuart Pearson here looking to make P11 overall versus Bronner. He's on the inside, and well, we've seen this move made earlier on. The driver on the inside does seem to be able to dictate the flow into the corner. We also have seen some drivers go around the outside, and Hay in particular on Sharples, a phenomenal move around the outside, but Pearson doing it the more conventional way, and it's a place gained overall for the Slow and Steady Racing driver. But as he now powers his way out towards turn number 4, drives who made the way to turn 4 recently. Well, here is Brandon Hay, who the Newbridge Esports drivers got Darren Sharples inching closer. And keeping in mind that Hay did seem to have a lot of pace at his fingertips, and I wonder now whether Brandon Hay, potentially not feeling as comfortable in the car, perhaps he's just taking the tyres a little bit too far and therefore back in the car and focusing on consolidating his P3. Well, to chase down Jones in the Pro Class, he would have to bring down a 10-second gap, and well, given it the amount of time of day remaining in this race and the relative pace, whilst Hay right now has been on average 0.3 of a second a lap faster compared to Jones, he's not going to get this done, so I think he might be just protecting the car. But meanwhile, Darren Sharples, I think, throwing caution to the wind here and trying to come back at Hay in the late stage of this race. He wants that P3 as well, and remember, these two right now are both technically outsiders for the Pro Championship crown out of the 6 drivers who are eligible still for it. And well, after today, we're going to have at least 5 of our drivers are contenders in contention, particularly with Casper Tunsted's retirement. That's going to drop him from the lead of the championship. Aaron McGregor, who's the other joint leader, will effectively take the lead, but Sharples and Hay will gain a huge amount of ground when drop scores are accounted for. And remember, next week's round at Mount Panorama is an undroppable round, so therefore our drivers right now are really teeing themselves up here for what will be a Pro Championship that's going to go down to the wire. And the Pro Class always seems to go down to the wire the most out of all of our championships, or at least in all my career of covering the UKSimRacing GT3 League, which will now be amounting to what will be a good 4 seasons, if my memory serves me correctly, and this is the closest the Pro Class has been, and that's saying something with the battle in what was season 9 between Peter Cox and what was John Eddowes at the time. But still, let's stop recollecting on the past and focus on the present and what could lie in the future, as they say, as he makes out of turn number 6 and up towards 7. And right now Sharples doing everything here to try and close down Hay, but Hay in return just responding here and managing this gap. But elsewhere, have we seen anything else occur in terms of potential moves or upcoming? Well, we do have Lawrence March, who is on the charge here, the Welshman in number 22, still trying to hunt down Pearson, and it's a 5.5 second gap as new fastest lap of the race. In fact, it's the fastest by 10 thousandths of a second. It's Alex Hill, who's also set a 1:27.128 to match the time set by Rhys Saunders, but as we understand it, it is 1/10,000th faster than Saunders, so now having to cut it down to the finest microscopic margin. But Hill coming on strong right at the end of this race and wanting to deny his peers in the elite class the fastest lap. But March here pushing on, and that previous lap from Pearson was was a 1:28.68. Meanwhile for March, as he crosses the line, what's it going to be here for the number 22? It's a 28.339, so it is 3/10 gained, but he's only got what will be 2 laps remaining, including the one he's gone on to, so I don't think he's going to have time. But then we look back to your race leader overall here, ladies and gentlemen, and well, the man right now who seems to be performing a miracle on fuel is none other than Rhys Saunders. He winds his way on around, but we're looking from him. We have to take a brief halt there, ladies and gentlemen, because Brandon Hay and Darren Sharples are still battling for position, and well, they've exchanged places quite recently, but it looks as though they might have battled side by side from 3 into 4, and now Hay under huge pressure here as they come out of turn number 6 and up towards 7 and 8. Well, we're going to focus on this battle to the end, because this could be a championship defining battle going into our season finale in terms of who out of these two, who is going to be the closest in terms of trying to take the pro crown off the championship leader. That will be Aaron McGregor, we believe. We'll give you an update on that after today. Was they wind the way out of turn at number 10. Hay right now definitely under pressure as Hill sets a new fastest lap of this race, which is now a 1:27.10, so he will take that fastest lap title unless there's a response from Rhys Saunders, who's gone on to the final lap of this race. We've gone to a 31st and final lap here today, but on your screen Brandon Hay able to break away, so it looks though that it might have just been a brief moment from the Newbridge Esports driver. Flashes his lights there to BJ Alvarez to say to him, steer clear, I need you to stay away, and Sharples makes his way through as well. So these two right now ever close as they make their way into turn number 1, and the white flag does wave. But as they head on down, Sharples here will know if he's going to do this, he needs Hay to make a mistake, because 5/10 is not easy to close as they wind their way out of turn number 2 and up towards 3-4 they do. And Hay in fact getting the better exit and moving the gap up to almost 7/10 now, with what is half the lap still remaining by the time they clear the turn 4 hairpin. As they make the way up towards the hairpin, under braking it, it looks as though turn 4 is where Sharples is able to close up quite significantly. But as they make the way out of the corner, meanwhile we look to this man, and well, right now he's only got 1 corner to go between himself and what is another masterclass on strategy, and he's going to do it, ladies and gentlemen. That car is not running out of fuel. The checker flag is going to wave very shortly, and it's going to be Rhys Saunders who storms his way through to make it back-to-back wins here today at Phillip Island for Team Year 1 in the Elite and Overall category. Ryan Davis will be your runner-up in the Elite class and P2 overall, and it'll be another phenomenal Pro class win from Chris Kirtland for Downforce Racing as he trimmed the weeds along the way, with Ryan Walker P4 in a silent race, but P3 in the Elite class overall and a podium to go with it. It'll then be Richard Jones who crosses the line, your runner-up in the Pro class in a great drive for the slow and steady race, drives best performance of the season, and Satinder Dinsa makes it another win, back-to-back wins in the AM class for TQ SimSport Tara. His AM Championship hopes are well and truly alive ahead of Brandon Hay, who is then coming across the line P7 overall at P3 in the Pro class ahead of Darren Sharples, with Simon Andre Livingston your runner-up in the AM class, and his championship lead will continue to extend with James Connolly 3rd place and your final podium finisher in the AM class and completing your top 10 overall. Stuart Pearson P11 just behind him, couldn't find a way past in the end. Casper Brotner in the place of P12 overall. We've still got a couple more drives coming to the end, including Thomas Barjuk here as the Pro team makes his way on through, and the Rexy Mobile has been for it all today with some near misses with the barrier, but still the Briton comes on through for P6 in the AM class, and it will be Paul Joseph Clears who finishes a lap down P7 in the AM class, but still in it to win it, as they say. And those are all your finishers, I do believe, ladies and gentlemen, unless we have any more out there. In fact, we may have one more, and it will be Alex Hill, who's our final finisher. He will be a lap down in the end in the Elite class effective, but still, he'll take the TQ SimSport P4 position in the Elite class in the number 276 and the fastest lap of the race as well. And, well, a difficult day for Alex Hill, but still the accolade of the fastest lap. That's always something to take away for your peers as he winds it down now and makes his way to the pit lane. But a fantastic race in the end from start to finish, and for our drivers it did look as though for Rhys Saunders just absolutely infallible in strategy, but Satinder Dinsa as he makes his way down the pit straight here, well, I don't think he can quite believe his fortunes, making it 2 wins out of 2, and well, he's doing the donuts there, understandably so. I think he went into tonight feeling as though the BMW M4 wasn't going to be the car that would be the one on pole, even though he gave it everything to be on pole and he felt as though he could be, and then today in the race. Well, as he just misses the barrier there, Lafitte, Tiki SimSport, and indeed Greg Zenhai will be grateful for the fact he hasn't just taken the rear bumper and rear suspension that car to pieces. He'll know now that he has definitely got an outside chance of claiming the AM Championship crown at Bathurst in a week's time. It may be slender, but if he can make it another win, and we'll see when Andre Livingston drops major points there and doesn't finish inside the top 5, we could see a surprise in store. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we take a look at those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries, and here they are. And after 45 minutes of racing in round number 8 of the UKSimRacing GT3 League Season 11, brought to you live on the UKSimRacing YouTube channel from circuit side at Phillip Island's Grand Prix circuit today, Rhys Saunders taking the overall win there for Team Year 1 with great pace in the first stint, fuel saving as well, and strategy all moulded together, and by 6 seconds in the end over Ryan Davis and Tiki SimSport Kimi P2. Chris Kirtland P3 there, rounding off the overall podium, and another overall podium there for your pro winner today for Downforce Racing, and he finished 5 seconds clear of Ryan Walker for Satellite Racing, who completed the elite podium but just missed out on the overall podium there. Then we had Richard Jones, P5, in his best performance of the season, both overall and second place in the Pro class. That confirms his best pro position of the season for Slow and Steady Racing, with 5 seconds to Satinder Dinsa, and back-to-back wins for the AM driver for Tiki SimSport Tower, and a P6 overall. He'll be absolutely pleased. A first seconds back, then Brandon Hay at P7 for Newbridge Esports, rounds off the pro podium of Kirtland, Jones and Hay. A well-fought third place in the end, holding off Darren Sharples, who finished only what was 1 second behind for UK Sim Racing Price. And in Simon Andre Livingston at P9 there for Racing Out Esports AM, second place in the AM class, and just fended off James Conley to the finish for UK Sim Racing Moz. In the battle of the two Ferrari drivers, it would be Livingston today who would be the stronger Ferrari driver, it would seem, by comparison. But they complete what is that AM podium of Deanser, Livingston and Conley, and best of the rest P11 Stuart Pearson for Slower and Steady Racing, just missing out on the podium in the AM class, but still knowing some good points on the board, and it still keeps him just in touch with the AM class championship, but he would need results to be adverse for all of his rivals now in order to have a chance in taking that crown. But then we looked at our drivers who finished a lap down. We saw Alex Hill was the final. In fact, he will be the final lead lap finisher there. We do apologise for saying he was a lap down. In fact, he did finish on the lead lap there, P15 for Tiki SimSport, and also 4th in the elite class. And then finishing a lap down was Paul Joseph Cliff, P16 there for Olympus Esports, and finishing at 2 laps down, we did see Aaron McGregor and also BJ Alvarez, with 5 laps down to Daniel Payes, P19, 8 laps down to John Doble for Tiki SimSport Kimi, and Casper Tunstead 9 laps down for with P21 for Peak Sim Racing. Then we'll be classified as finishers, given the fact we turned 31 laps here today, and well, to be classified as a finisher, you need to complete over half the race distance. But those who did not be classified as non-finishers, Stuart Parker Hamilton and Kerry Corcoran for TPA Racing and Downforce Racing respectively. Now coming on to the individual classes. And we can see Rhys Saunders taking the win by 6 seconds in the end for Team Year 1 over Ryan Davis at Tiki SimSport Kimi. And again, it has to be stated that Saunders right now having an absolute charge at the end of the season, and definitely on course to fighting for that P2 versus Håkon Grebstad when all is said and done. Ryan Davis P2 there for Tiki SimSport Kimi, and another reliable podium finish, although I think ruin what could have been a win today, and he'll be wondering how Saunders was able to make that first stint work so well, with Ryan Walker rounding off the elite podium there, P3 for Satellite Racing, and the quiet race, but still some good points on the board, and Alex Hill at P4, almost lap down for Tiki SimSport, but then bringing it on home, completing 31 laps, much like his peers. Then coming on to the Pro class. And here we can see Chris Kirtland for Downforce Racing taking up the win by 10.5 seconds in the end of Slow and Steady Racing's Richard Jones, with Brandon Hay completing the top 3 there for Newbridge Esports, a further 12 seconds behind. He had to dig in and hold off Darren Sharp, who's finished a second behind in the end for UK Sim Racing Price, with Old Dudes and Cars is Casper Brotner completing the top 5 there. And a difficult day for Casper Brotner and Old Dudes and Cars as a whole today, with Aaron McGregor P6 for Protect Motorsport, 2 laps down in the end, and the result has not put him in good stead for being championship leader going into the season finale, and the same for Daniel Payes there. The Old Dudes in Cars having a difficult day, much like his teammate, but with that major shunt to the wall coming out of turn number 1, a P7 was the best he was able to achieve at 5 laps down. Casper Tunstead will take points from today, but that P8 finish for Peak Sim Racing will now drop him behind the effective championship leader of Aaron McGregor, and he'll know that he's got his work to do at Mount Panorama in order to take that championship crown, and Kerry Corcoran being the sole non-finisher, retiring early on the race there for Downforce Racing after 3 laps. A difficult race of the 28, but good to see them in the YouTube chat cheering on their teammates. points. We then come on to last but not least the AM class, and here we can see Satinder Dinsa making it back-to-back wins in the AM class at Tiki Sim Sport Tower, and today after taking the lead being able to run away with proceedings compared to Le Mans where they were kept under pressure by Stuart Pearson all the way to the checkered flag, but today it was Dinsa's race and he absolutely smashed it. 11 seconds between him and Sim Andre Livingston. Livingston knowing that second place will put him in good stead to be the firm favourite going into our season finale for the AM Championship crown, but the race now esports AM driver now knowing the task is going to be just a little bit more difficult to do, given that Dinsa does seem to be on an absolute charge. James Conley, P3 there for UKSimRacing Moss, fighting hard versus Livingston but couldn't find a way through, and the 46 driver still having a great result here today, it cannot be understated, and keeping Stuart Pearson behind by only 3 tenths in the end, and the slow and steady racing driver not quite able to make it another podium, but still knowing he had the pace of the podium, and we can expect plenty more from him in our season finale. Lawrence March on his debut at P5 for Downforce Racing, a great drive, albeit undermined to a degree by a poor start which dropped him 4 places down in class, and also an early mistake in the race on top of that which cost him dear, but still keep your eyes out for the number 22 driver from Wales. I suspect he definitely will be going for a podium in our final race of the season. And then Tom Barjack completing all the drives that finished on the lead lap, P6 there, the privateer, a further what was, excuse me, I do believe the best part 27 seconds behind. Paul Joseph Cliff's P7 there for Olympus Esports, a lap down but still in it to win it and holding on to the position ahead of BJ Alvarez. The Team Sim Racing Chicago driver had an early incident which cost him dear, and a further incident as well in the midpoint of the race, but still also picking up some key points. And then John doubled the last of our Class 5 finishers, P9 there, 8 laps down, after having to sacrifice the car into the barrier after missing his braking point into the turn 4 hairpin. Stephen Park Hamilton being our sole retiree, he'll be classified as a non-finisher for not completing over half the race distance. A difficult end to the season for the TPA racing driver, but still we look forward to plenty more for him when he's on the grid in future racing. But that concludes our recap of the finishing positions, ladies and gentlemen, but it doesn't quite conclude our broadcast for today, of course, given the fact that we've yet to hear from our drivers and their perspective on the racing today, and I'm sure we'll have some quite entertaining perspectives from our drivers up and down the order. So we're going to take an approximate 10 to 12 minute break, but after that we'll be back for our post-round interviews. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. We'll see you shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And we're going to go straight into proceedings today by speaking with our AM class winner, Satinder Deansir from TQ Supersport Tower, who joins me now in the interview room. Good evening to you, Satinder, and what a drive from yourself today. And back-to-back wins after your breakthrough win at Le Mans. It must feel like a dream that never ends.
Man, I don't even know what to say. This was an interesting race for me because it was in a position that I've never really been in, of just kind of slowly eking out a gap and kind of going from there.
Well, you had to do it the hard way, given the fact we saw you mention going into qualifying and out of qualifying that you were expected to be on pole, or at least battling up for pole in the qualifying session. But in the end, it was a P3 in class, a P12 overall. It was close, but not quite enough.
Yeah, I think the same issue was for a lot of us actually, because after qualifying, the chat on the racing session kind of went up, and everyone was like, "Oh, I could have got a better lap. I could have got a better lap." So I think for everybody across the field, we were all struggling to nail down the laps that we thought we could do.
Now, with regards to qualifying, and we know that track position is so critical here at Phillip Island, but also getting a lap spot on here is a challenge. Are there any particular parts that you felt with regards to a qualifying lap around here that were perhaps the most difficult to die in? Say the trail braking into the sweeping corners, the throttle modulation, just what in your opinion makes this a difficult circuit?
Yeah, this is a super technical track. I knew going into it that there's going to be very difficult to pass, so I knew that my qualifying would have to be really important. And the part that I was struggling with the most was right after the hairpin. I believe it's turn 3 going into the 4, 5, 6 section. The exit of that section, because it's such a slow roll and it's uphill, I was struggling with that the most because you're carrying a lot of speed up the hill. And I was able to kind of just, take it easy, slow in, fast out situation. And thankfully, I was able to get it to where it was better, but I still think there was still some room on the table for that.
So with there being room on the table, and particularly we saw how close it was between yourself and your rivals going into the race, a good start for yourself and very quickly found yourself leading come the end of what was lap number 1.
Yeah, so I knew I was right behind Simon for the start, and we took it really safe into turn 1, and I saw that I had nobody on my right, so I saw him go a little bit wide into turn 2, and I was like, that's kind of strange because the actual line that you want to take is almost on the grass with your left tire and you're completely riding the curb. So I stuck my nose up the inside just a little bit, and I was able to squeeze in and kind of hold the actual racing line, and that caused him to go a little bit wide, and that's not the line that you want to be on.
Indeed, in the end, finding a way on through in the early stages. And as we look back at some of the earlier pictures of the race now, particularly we saw that overtake only moments ago, and then your early breakaway on laps 2 and 3, the gap between yourself and the Ferrari driver, Simon Andre Livingston, started off to grow quite gradually, but then as time went on in the first stint, it really started to open up. Do you feel as though the BMW was the stronger car and strategy today?
I actually don't know. I think it had a lot of straight line speed, but there's not a lot of many straights. It's a really slow, curvy section, and sometimes the BMW is seen a little bit as a boat in terms of how slow and it is to corner. But I think a lot of it probably had to do with the amount of practice that I just put in of trying to get that car into a position that maybe it shouldn't have been in.
I see. With the practice coming on through as the race went on, we saw that gap gradually open up, and then the pit stops came, and it looked as though it was a relatively conventional pit stop you see yourself. In fact, one of the longest pit stops recorded. I think it was a bit more of a safe stop in terms of not wanting to make any mistakes.
Exactly. Going into it, the pit entry is actually a lot more deceiving than it looks. You really got to slow it down, otherwise you're going to go wide on the grass. So I braked early for the braking point for the pit entry. I put a little bit extra fuel than I needed to. I took both right tires and just tried to keep it super clean because my team was on the radio and they're like, "Hey, you have a gap. No need to make a mistake." And we're all joking of actually. Probably lap 3 or lap 4, I got on the radio and I was like, "Hey guys, is it bad that I'm thinking about what I'm gonna say in the interview?" as a joke. And everyone's like, "It's way too early to say that." And then they're all like, "Oh, you're gonna definitely get a speeding in the pit lane penalty." And I was like, "I know that I can't be making that kind of mistake. Just take it super easy. I have the time in hand and just got to keep it smooth."
Oh, indeed, and quite funny there to hear with regards to the banter, if you will, over the team radio. But it's great to see how it came through on the pit stop and no speed limit penalties or anything of that sort being applied. And as the race wound down in the late stages, we saw a lot of drivers really starting to struggle for pace, but not yourself necessarily. Do you feel as though perhaps tyre wear was starting to pinch others, whereas for yourself the car felt quite balanced?
Absolutely. My tire, I was super confident in my tires at the very end. I knew that since I was doing a lot of open air running without anybody to bother, that allowed me to save a lot of my tires. My target was a 28.2 for the race pace, and I was just consistently hitting that. I knew that I didn't have to push any harder because I did have clear air and it wasn't a close battle. So I was able to cruise as well as save the tires until the end to minimize some of those mistakes.
And in doing so, taking that checker flag and making it another win on the bounce, it must have felt absolutely incredible seeing that coming out the corner and thinking to yourself, you know what, Le Mans last week wasn't a fluke.
You know, that was you just said it perfectly. I knew I put in the practice, and I was like, I think this is well deserved. I feel like the entire season I've put in so much more practice than last season, and to have it really show in the results it means a lot.
And well, with this win today, it does mean now that you are still technically within reach of claiming the AM Championship crown. Provisional results say that you're 18 points off a championship leader, Simon Andre Livingston, and should you improve by a grand total of what would be at least 19 points over your previous result at Fuji, really you've got to go for the win, or at least a second place and take all the bonus points with it. And if Livingston doesn't improve, you could be AM champion. How does that thought make you feel?
You know, it's not really something I've thought about until you put it into words right now. It's crazy. I really didn't think that was possible. I finished, I think, 12th or 13th last season, and to see the results that I'm seeing right now, it's crazy. And I think with going into Bathurst next race, it's an endurance race, and it's also very, very tricky. The walls are very, very close. I do think anything can happen because just one small tap and you're going to go into the walls.
Indeed, anything can happen on the mountain, but the question will be next week whether you can make the magic happen and take the final step, or at least hold on to that second place for yourself and Steiner Sunny being only a point separated. But we'll wait until then. But just before we do let you go, Stinder, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on today's broadcast?
Yeah, definitely. Once again, the guys at Tiki, they've been coaching me this whole entire time, telling me do this in this corner, do that in there. Throughout the races, they're talking about this is the gap here. You got to focus on this. Don't worry about that. And that really helps me get through those races and put in the results that I need. And of course, I know my family is watching as well, so shout out to them too.
Well, Stinder, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room once again. A stellar showcase of your driving talents today. Back-to-back wins at Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit, and with it now a championship that is distant, but it's still within your grasp. Can you make the magic happen in a week's time? We'll find out then. But until then, have a fantastic rest of your day, and congratulations on a deserved win.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. Appreciate it.
So hearing there from our AM class winner today, Satinder Deanser, the AM driver who seems to be coming up with a plan and making it work out time and time again. And speaking quite candidly there with regards to the amount of practice he's put in and that feeling going into qualifying, and in a way that disappointment in qualifying about missing out on pole, but feeling as though the pace of the car and most drivers feeling as though the pace of their cars just weren't there in qualifying compared to perhaps where they expect it to be going into tonight. But still not to be dissuaded, and knowing he was only a 10th off a pole, which was taken by Simon Andre Livingston, he then looked to the race, and with the gap that was created on the inside by Lawrence March having a difficult start to the race and really bogging down, and we're not quite sure what happened there. The door was open. Simon Andre Livingston perhaps may not have noticed the door was open. The two of them battled their way through turns 1 and 2, and with Livingston go deep at turn number 2, the door was open for Deanser to make his way on through, and after that he never looked back. And as we've seen over these pictures during the interview, within the space of 10 laps, Deanser absolutely just charging away and not having to worry about the Ferrari driver ever again, and making sure there to get it right on the pits in terms of coming in, avoiding picking up any speeding penalties. These wins are precious to him, and indeed looking at least finish inside the top 3 of this championship come the end of the season. He's well on course to achieving that, let that be said, but he's also got a chance of potentially snatching the crown right at the end. And at Mount Panorama, could we see a miracle happen? Well, I think many of you would love to see it, but we'll have to wait and see. But now going on to our second interview of today, it is your current championship leader of Simon Andre Livingston in the YAM class, and as he gets ready to join me in the interview room, we'll get to see his perspective and hear his perspective, we should say, on what has definitely been a day where second place was the best that could be pulled. But as he joins me now in the interview room, we say hello to you, Simon Andre. And what a challenging day it's been for yourself. A second place that in most other regards would feel like a win. But today, a missed opportunity to take a win which would have given you the championship crown.
Is it that close, Paul? Yeah, it was a hard race. Lap 1, Satinder came inside with a really good dive in turn 2, and I didn't really want to fight it, and I thought I could stay behind and keep it going, but I think we got like 1 or 2 car between us, and then he was a rocket ship out there today, Paul. He has really come off speed this season, and it's been hard just to keep up. I was quite amazed that I got even a pole lap in today. Don't know where that lap came from because I haven't been anywhere near that. I just shaved like, I think it was like half a second or something to get that pole lap in. But yeah, today was a tough race, Paul.
Indeed, it definitely looked a tough one, but still focusing on qualifying for a little bit. A phenomenal lap from yourself and a 10th clear of your rivals. And well, as you say yourself, not quite sure where the lap came from, but you were able to deliver it. For yourself, how did you find the Phillip Island circuit in qualifying? Given we've heard a lot of drivers saying it seemed to really be a difficult circuit to get a good time on.
Yeah, I felt like every time I've been practicing on it before this race, inconsistent is the word that I will use, because you don't have, especially like turn 2, you don't have any good reference point for braking, so it just goes by feel, and also you have to like trail brake all the way up to like almost the exit of the corner and then like gradually get on the throttle, and it's quite hard just to find the rhythm there. And also like I guess it's turn 5, 6 or something is also like trying to get like when to go on and off the throttle is pretty hard. But if you like, I don't know, get every corner together, you will set a good time, because I've looked to my telemetry on all my sessions, and it's like, okay, this lap I lost 3/10 in that corner and that corner. So just like put a lap together, I don't think like even if it was a pole lap, I think like if I look back on it, it's probably some sectors where I could have gone even faster. But getting a pole today, that quite shocked me, because in the practice session, those guys like Steven and Satinder especially, they were like almost like 6/10 faster than me. So I was like, okay, this is going to be a hard race.
Well, speaking of a hard race, going into turn 1 on lap 1, a good start for yourself, but it looked as though your rival of Dean Cirque got a better start, and with the door being open with March having a very slow start, caught you a bit by surprise.
Yeah, I didn't really think that it was going to go for the move already in like the second corner, but he did, and I gave him space when I saw it was coming. I turned a little bit, opened the corner a little bit, and tried to just keep myself on the course, because like my objective today was just to try to finish with as a good result as possible, thinking like a little bit of like the total championship. But of course, when you like put it on pole, you kind of feel like, okay, it will be great to get like third victory of the season, but also I didn't want to risk sitting out there in the gravel trap or outside of the course. So I kind of had a little bit, maybe this particular moment I was probably a little bit too cautious. But again, P2 for me today, perfect.
Or indeed a perfect result, but on the way you did have one thorn in your side, and it was another Ferrari in the form of UKSimRacing's own James Connolly, who kept you honest not just on the first stint, but also the second stint, and practically spent 35 minutes behind you or alongside you.
Yeah, I don't think I ever been this sweaty in my sim rig before. He was keeping me on my toes the whole race. It was a fun battle. I felt it was really fair. He didn't like do any stupid moves, and I don't feel like I did any like stupid moves in like defending too hard or anything. But yeah, that was a fun battle, and in the end there, I think I was chasing two of the pro guys, and I had a little bit of a gap build up. And then we got into some back markers who was fighting for position then between them, and they almost like took all of us out. But at that moment, he came back, and then I had to like get my head down again. But then I managed in the end of the race to kind of like build up a gap, and then I was just tire managing till the end of the race because I saw that Satinder was like, I think it was 8 or 9 seconds ahead, and it was no sense in like trying to drive it. Just keep the car on the road, manage the tires, and maintain the gap back to James. And I will say I succeeded at that. So great result.
Oh, most definitely, and it was a hair-raising moment in the commentary booth when we did see that multi-battle moment of yourself and Connolly fighting with the two AM drives who were a lap down of Doble and also Cliff fighting in front, and also the two pros of Hay and Sharples fighting in front of you and all coming together, but still you all emerged from that safe and sound and were able to carry on, and that second place in the end, a very hard-fought one as you say, but with that second place, it does mean provisionally, subject to stewarding decisions, you're now 18 points clear at the front of the table, and on paper, you are the firm favourite to take the championship crown at Mount Panorama. It would need results to go against you in the season finale, but I have to ask, how are you feeling for it?
Yeah, well, I don't like that pressure, but yeah, I feel quite good about going into Mount Panorama, but I've driven so many races on that track, and it's like that. I don't remember the name of it, like, but when you like dive down the mountain again, and you have that hard like left to right combination when you're going down the hill. I have just had nightmares of like somebody dropping in that corner and we having like one big massive pile up and getting stuck in that, and like watching my chances up the championship just going away. And that's what I'm most afraid of in that race. I think like if I drive smart, I'm not so sure about the math, but if like Satinder wins or something, I think I need to finish. I see somewhere like P8 or P7 or something, I think. So I have like a lot of margins to work with, but it's just like I know I have to finish that race at least. And that track, especially that part, if somebody bins it, it will be a massive pile up. So that is what I'm most afraid of.
Well, it's interesting to hear your thoughts on that, and the section you're referring to in particular being the infamous Dipper chicane, if you will. But like you say, all you need to do is finish 7th or higher at Bathurst, and the title will be yours. But we'll have to wait and see whether that's how it all plays out for you in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Simon Andre, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
I would like to give a shout out and a thank you to all my teammates in Racing Lab, which prioritized the National Norwegian Championship today, which I prioritized the UKSimRacing League. And if I'm not mistaken, I guess one of my teammates won the first race, so that is great. And also a big shout out to Sadinder today. He was amazingly fast. And he's grown as a sim racer. It's nice to see that the AM people are having a good progression through the season. And finally, I would like to say a thanks to you, Paul, and to my family and friends who is watching the broadcast. And hope you have a good Sunday here from rainy Norway.
Well, indeed, it's raining here in the United Kingdom as well, so we're equal in that regard. But regardless, Simon Andre, it's been a pleasure as always to have you join me in the interview, and congratulations to the RaceNav Esports team for their performance in the Norway event today, and we look forward to seeing them all out on circuit in a week's time, hopefully. But until then, well, you better gear up for that season finale. It's definitely looking to be going your way, but will it go your way? We'll see you in a week's time and find out. But until then, have a fantastic rest of your evening.
Thank you, Paul. See you on the mountain.
So hearing that from our runner-up in the AM class today, Simon Andre Livingston, and you can hear the exhaustion from him. And well, you're seeing it on screen right now, this battle that has absolutely worn him down today. And well, normally full of energy after a race for an interview, but today really I think having to process that if he picked up the win here, it would have been the AM Championship crown decided by effectively result count back, given the fact if any driver was to improve, they would then be tied on points with Simon Andre and Batito, I should say, Satinder Dinsa. Alternatively, what would have been Steinar Sani were to improve, then it would have been result count back, which would have seen the tie settled in the favour of Livingston. But he's now got to go into the season finale knowing that he has to finish the race, and Bathurst is one of those races where to finish it, it's all about survival. But that's in the future in a week's time. But today, he survived a very harsh test, and that was the rise of James Conley, who continued to put the pressure on at time and time again, not just in the first stint, but also in the second stint. But in the end, the RaceNav Esports AM driver was able to steer clear of the danger, and even when the danger seemed to find him in the late stages of the race, with the three battles coming together of pros, AMs, and lapdown AMs all battling to turn number 4, the RaceNav Esports AM Ferrari stood the test that was presented to it, and indeed right now he is only one round away from taking that championship crown. But will he be able to do it? That's what we're going to find out and see next week. And well, we now come on to our final interview of the day, ladies and gentlemen. And well, we're going to be hearing from our elite class driver from TQ Simsport of Alex Hill. And as he gets ready to join me in at the interview room, well, we'll be starting to find out his perspective on what has definitely been a tough race today. And whilst it was a depleted AM class, I should say, elite class, still looking to do his best out there. And as he joins me in the interview room now, it's been some time, but good evening to you, Alex. How have you been? And what a challenging day today. It looked tough out there in the Porsche 992.
Yeah, I've been well, thank you very much, and good to see you again. It has been a while. It was not my finest performance in many aspects. I didn't do as well as I could have done in qualifying. My optimal for qualifying was half a second off my actual qualifying lap, so I knew I could make up positions, and I got one pretty quickly off the start. And then when Casper came off in front of me, I was actually beginning to gain back on the leaders again. But unfortunately, I had a big moment in turn 1, which meant I ended up hitting the wall, which I had to go into the pits to repair that. So that was the end of the actual race for it. And then I actually repeated it again later in the race, but didn't hit the wall the second time. In the end, after a discussion with our team, decided, well, we've got nothing else to lose. We might as well try and get the fastest lap, which I didn't get the overall fastest, but I did get the fastest for elite.
Well, indeed, and breaking it down into its constituent parts in qualifying, like you said, qualifying not quite working out the way you wanted it to. And for yourself, and it does seem as though this circuit is a Porsche circuit, but at the same time, it's one where the Porsche is dancing on ice for the majority of the lap to get the ultimate lap time.
Yeah, you have to be on the edge. Like there was quite a few very high speed corners where the Porsche is dancing, as you will put it, on the very limit of its traction. And unfortunately today I pushed it a little bit too far twice in a row.
Well, unfortunate there, but then going into the race, knowing that you'd be starting P8 in the group, P3 in class, just ahead of rival Ryan Walker. Did you have a particular strategy in mind before the incident in terms of how you might make your way up the order over the distance?
Well, yeah, as I say, I got a position right at the start, and then I made a attempt early at Casper, which he managed to defend, which I'll be honest, I was incredibly frustrated by at the time because I ended up a little stuck behind him. I knew I was faster on there, which when I got released, I was able to demonstrate because I was gaining on the front group before I had my off. So I think if that hadn't happened, it would have been a much more interesting race from that perspective near the end. Because as I say, I did feel I was gaining 10th or 2 a lap, but I was only like 4 seconds back from the leader at that point. So there was definitely something on.
Well, I can definitely appreciate your frustration in that regard, and as you unleashed and started to make up for lost time, that unfortunate Turn 1 incident, and Turn 1 claiming multiple drivers today, and quite a few Porsche drivers as part of that group. Just take us through what happened from your perspective.
Yeah, so I've looked back at it. It's quite simple. I touched the inside curb with one tyre and one tyre only. That tyre, sort of the car sort of bounced off slightly from the curb, and then the rear end got loose. And what I should have done is applied a bit more power to put the weight back over the back of the car, but I didn't, and the car snapped. And in that particular event, it ended up in the wall, which isn't what you're wanting when you're racing such a track. I have had it when I've practiced here, but you just end up sort of going off, and because there's a lot of runoff here, it takes a while to get back, but it is you haven't damaged the car. But in that particular case, the way it went, it meant I didn't have any chance of saving it, unfortunately.
Indeed, it was unfortunate, but still able to limp the car around to the pits and forced to take your pit stop a little bit earlier with that fast repair, but then getting back out and going on the charge once again. And whilst you may have had a similar incident at Turn 1 later on, you're still able to get the fastest lap in the elite class by some degree at 27.10. Must have brought a slight smile to your face, knowing that you did have that pace and you demonstrated by nabbing a point at the end.
Yeah, well, I was discussing it with my teammates at the time, because if Ryan had it, I wouldn't have wanted to take it off him, but he didn't have it at the time. Rhys had it at the time, so we sort of after sort of on there, I was like, well, the temperature's gone up a few degrees, but we'll change all 4 tires in a second pit stop and see what happens. And I came out just in front of Rhys actually, and he probably knew exactly what I was doing, sort of on there to try and get that extra point. But there was only 4 of us here. I was at the back. There was nothing to lose, so I might as well have tried to get that fastest lap. So that's what I did.
100%, and going all in the end and taking that fastest lap by just shy of 2 tenths over Rhys Saunders. And at one point, the pair of you, in 200ths I should say, of Rhys Saunders, and both of you at one point sharing the fastest lap title, both on a 27.128. So you were made to work hard for it in those closing stages.
Yeah, I got told I need to go a little bit faster, and I'm like, how much is a little bit faster? And like, you did exactly the same lap. I was like, okay, we've got one more lap in it. But obviously the tyres do go off here quite quickly. So if I hadn't got it on that next lap, it wouldn't have happened. But yeah, it was, I suppose there was a little bit of time left, but I don't think there would have been enough time to go back in, change the tyres and attempt it again.
Well, it was an attempt well worth it in the end, and with that fastest lap in the bag, some points to come away with. Still a championship campaign where you're battling to be inside the top 10 of the elite class when all is said and done. And well, our season finale next week at Mount Panorama. How are you feeling for a trip up the mountain?
I love Bathurst as a track. It's one of my favourite tracks, so I am well game for this one. We'll have to see how the Porsche behaves there. I suspect the BMW is going to be strong there due to the altitude. I suspect the Ferrari should be strong there as well due to the altitude, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm not coming up with excuses before we start. I have done a few laps in the Porsche. It felt fast over the mountain, but whether or not we have that straight line speed to make the overtakes on the overtaking points is another question entirely.
Well, we do look forward to seeing whether you can make some magic happen in the Porsche 992 at Bathurst in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Alex, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, so shout out to obviously everybody in Tiki, everyone in UKSR who's on there, everyone who's competed in the race today. So and I got the feeling that the Gold Championship, not Gold, the Elite Championship is now wrapped up based on points. So yeah, congratulations on there as well.
Well, I think you are indeed correct. I'll just double check that in due course. But with that, Alex, it's been a pleasure to have you join me in the interview room.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations on your result today, in particular that fastest lap right at the end, when it really was a bit of a do or die moment to get that lap on the board. But we look forward to seeing what you can do next week in the season finale. And until then, have a fantastic rest of your evening.
Thank you all.
So hearing there from Alex Hill, also known as Xander Hill, to friends and family, and the Tiki SimSport driver today, not having things quite go his way from the outset in qualifying, and there was more time out there, but just not quite able to get the lap he wanted on the board, and indeed showing at the start of the race, with that great start which saw him make a move already into turn number 1, that he had the pace here to really chase down the leaders, but frustrated to a degree by the fact he couldn't find his way past some of his rivals, including the pro driver, I do believe, of Casper Tunstead. And when he did find his way through, then charging on, only to get it wrong at turn 1, which claims so many drivers today, and will, with that mistake, then relegated to a bit more of a rear guard role in the elite class, and focusing on getting the car home in P4 in class, but also on top of that, then having to try and nibble at the bonus points available and that fastest lap. And his first attempt, well, we got to see there the fact it was the joint fastest with Rhys Saunders, and on his second attempt, he finally got it done only by 200ths. But then again, whether it's 200ths or 2 attempts, it's the fastest lap. It's a bonus point in the bag. And for Alex Hill, now he'll be looking to Bathurst and feel as though he can take all the pace he's demonstrated today in Australia to the other locale within the country and try to come away with a win at the end of the season. And I reckon he's got the potency to do it, and we look forward to seeing him try in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes all of our interviews for today. And what we have heard from our 3 drivers just now, started off with Satinder Deensa for Tiki SimSport Tyre, the AM driver there who has made it back-to-back wins in terms of his finishing positions over the course of the last 2 rounds. We also got to hear there from Simon Andre Livingston from Racing Lab Esports AM in a phenomenal battle for P2 between himself and James Conley, and now he is only moments away from taking the AM Championship crown should he finish the race next time out at what is the Bathurst circuit and finish at least what would be a P7 or higher, we do believe. And then lastly, we heard from Alex Hill for Tiki SimSport there, the elite driver who today, it wasn't about his finishing position necessarily with the limited number of elite drivers in attendance, but instead of focusing on picking up the points that he could and going for that ultimate fastest lap and taking it in the elite class in the end. Congratulations to all 3 of them on their performances, and thank you to them all for joining me in the interview room once again. And we should point out there, we do apologise for the slight misstatement there that Satinder Deensa is the overall winner for today's race. It should say he was P6 overall and P1 in class. We'll get that fixed for next time. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the drum roll and to give you an update on the class standings and the team's championship standings going into our season finale. And here is the latest results, subject to any Stewards inquiries. And as we can see, start of the elite championship, it is Erik Røseth who leads on 242 points to the 219 of Rhys Saunders. And we can confirm that provisionally with this, that it does mean that Røseth has taken the championship crown with a round to spare, as that would is effectively 23-point gap. Well, Saunders will need to improve his total score by 24 points in order to take the crown, given the fact he cannot beat Røseth on race wins and result count back. And well, right now Rhys Saunders can only improve his total score by what is a grand total there, I do believe, where it's in fact much less than what would be at the 24 points required. And to put it simply, it means that Saunders cannot take that crown away. So congratulations to Røseth. It'll be confirmed going into the season finale, and we'll give you that update at the start of next week's broadcast. But still, there's plenty more to play for P2, with Saunders now 4 points clear of Grebstad, and it is going to be the battle of the BMW M4 drivers, with the Indian Motorsport driver Håkon Grebstad knowing that today he has lost his title defence, but he's still got the right to battle for being the runner-up. But the question is, can he find a way to do so? Well, we'll have to wait and see a week from now. Meanwhile, P4, Ryan Davis of Tiki SimSport Kimmy, he's also an outside actor in that battle for the runner-up spot, with a 17-point gap to overhaul. But given his performance today and the pace he brought to the table, I think the Tiki SimSport Kimmy driver feels as though he's got an opportunity here to put himself in the top 3 P3 as a minimum. And then Ryan Walker, P5 on 186 points and looking to target completing his campaign with a 5th place finish in the championship. He's 6 points clear of Ryan Moles, and you can imagine the ProTech Motorsport drivers on the grid next week, it is going to be a close fought battle between the two of them to the very end. Then a further 37 points to Joe Newman for Empire Motorsport, and he's holding on to P7 by a single point over Martin Tillin, with Thomas Asphaug and Sam Shaw completing your top 10. And behind the ProTech Motorsport driver in P11, it's best of the rest P11 Peter Cox for UKSimRacing Clark, who holds an 8-point advantage over sister team Price rival of Mark Davison. And it's Damien Lobbett, Alex Hill and Cy Anthony who complete your top 15, with Alex Hill moving into P14 after his result today. And then Nathan Scott, Sam Congreve and Andy Jones complete your championship standings. Coming on to the pro class meanwhile, and here we can see Casper Tunstead leads the way. The Peak Sim Racing driver only leading the way based on what is there, his place in the table. And I do believe between himself and Aaron McGregor, it is joint scores still. And what a thrilling scenario to be in the fact that right now these two are still even. They went into tonight as evens, and now they're even still. But meanwhile, Darren Sharples has closed that gap up slightly to 11 points off of the top two. And he has a 2-point advantage over Matt Strand, with Brandon Hay a further point behind and Casper Brotner a further 5 points behind. Now, to give you the quick summary of how this all fits together, Tunstead and McGregor, they're both in an even rivalry, albeit in terms of potential improvements, we do have a scenario whereby I do believe that it's Casper Tunstead who can improve slightly more compared to McGregor. In fact, no, looking at it, they can both improve by the exact same amount in terms of results. They've both dropped a score of 30 going into the season finale at Bathurst. And then Darren Sharples is a further 11 points behind. Well, he can improve his grand total, but where it's a maximum there of 14 points. So he does have an outside opportunity, with his lowest score being a 28. So Tunstead and McGregor would need to essentially have a disastrous day, and Sharples would need to win as a minimum in order to be able to sweep the crown away. Matt Strand, meanwhile, it is now the scenario whereby Strand on his lowest score at 28 points, well, if he was to improve, he'd need the maximum possible score of 42 in order to be in a position to be able to win by a single point. So he's still in contention. And then for Brandon Hay, with his lowest score being a 16-pointer there in the opening round of the season, well, he's got the largest margin to improve by, and you can imagine if Hay is on the podium next week, or if he can take the win with bonus points as well, the Newbridge Esports driver may just suddenly surprise everybody by sweeping the crown away as an outsider at the season finale. But meanwhile, Casper Brotner down in P6 and 192 points. Well, his maximum improvement advantage margin is on a 24-point score. It does effectively mean right now he could improve by 18 points, but he will not be able to try and usurp Tunstead and McGregor. He'd fall short by a single point as a minimum. So therefore, it is a top 5 battle now for the Pro Championship crown come the season finale. Tunstead and McGregor are definitely the favourites. Sharples is an outsider, as is Matt Strand, but Brandon Hay is the big unknown inside that top 5, as he has got a large portion of points to improve upon. And again, if he does win, that could swing things massively in the number 96 BMW M4 driver's favour. But still, Casper Brotner will fight, and he may get himself involved there and could become a third element to this championship campaign battle. And Chris Kirkland as well, the Downforce Racing driver, with another sensational win today. And you can imagine the Porsche 992 driver will be very eager to try and turn things around and make it another win and make it effectively what will be 3 wins in the Pro class this season. In fact, I think it'd be 4 wins if my memory is correct if he takes it next week. And therefore, he won't become champion, but what he will become is a driver who will completely change the landscape for the top 5. Daniel Pays in P8 for Old Dudes in Cars. He's on 172 points, and he'll be hoping to have a few more points on the board before all is said and done after his debut in the Pro Championship this season and doing very well to be inside the top 10. He's got a 30-point advantage over Alan Lever, with the UKSimRacing Price driver not in attendance today. I think looking to come back next week and seeing if he can mix things up and push for a top 5 finish. And Alexander Truno Mikkelsen, the Racing Esports AM driver, a further 4 points behind and will complete in the top 10 there, only with 7 points over Richard Jones. And the Slow and Steady Racing driver continue to grow closer to that top 10 and looking to finish inside the top 10 when all is said and done. But Bevan Thompson a further, 13 points behind 9. He's in a rivalry with Mark Johnson, and it's Kerry Corcoran and Chris Constable who complete your top 15, with Giles Phillips P16 there on 70 points for Phillips GP, 16 clear of Rob Armstrong. Aaron Bieber, Lewis Payne and Rudy Avitson complete your top 20. And then outside the top 20 to round off the Pro Championship standings, it's Ian Manners, Martin Fernie, John Watt, Joe McManus and Aaron Herbert. And that's how they stand after 8 rounds of 9. We then lastly come on to the AM Championship standings for the Drivers' Championship update. And we can see here, Simon Andre Livingston for Racing Lab Esports AM on 219 points. He has an 18-point advantage over Satinder Deenser. And as we mentioned to the two of them during their post-round interviews, all Livingston needs to do next week is finish the race and improve upon his previous 24-point score at Fuji. And to do that, he'd need to finish, if I do remember correctly, the best part of what would be P7 or higher to do so in order to achieve his goal. Meanwhile, for Deenser, it's an outside shot. He needs to win as a minimum in order to be able to jump ahead. But in return, if he can get bonus points as well, then the TE Simsport Tower driver may just find himself stealing that crown away. So therefore, it's Livingston to take, but Deenser still has that outside opportunity, and Steinar Sally meanwhile in P3 for Racing Lab Esports Aaron 2. Well, with the result margins he can improve upon that 24 score at Le Mans, well, it does mean he is now out of contention for taking the crown, but he still could become a factor in making sure that it's a Racing Lab Esports 1-2, and that TE Simsport Tyre driver Deenser does not have that opportunity to usurp his teammate of Livingston. Meanwhile, Stuart Pearson at P4 for Slow and Steady Racing, he's out of contention for the crown, but he could once again be looking to try and finish inside the top 3 when all is said and done, after what's been a great second half of his season. And Jack Wyborn for TPA Racing falling to P5, but also it does have some reasonable scores to improve upon, particularly at Barcelona with those 24 points. So if he's in attendance next week, you can imagine he'll be all fired up for a top 3 finish come the end of the season. James Conley in P6, a great result today. It means he's now in arm's reach for the top 5 finish in the season for UKSimRacing Moss, only a point clear ahead of Tom Barger and Neil Smith, and both of them 180 points there, both looking to be in the top 5 as well when all is said and done. It's a further 34 points back to 146 in the favour of Marvin Cruz of Bike Racing, and he's in a back and forth ride with Paul Joseph Cliff for Olympus Esports. And there's the proof for the Olympus Esports driver that consistency and just getting the car home round after round has moved into the top 10, and he'll want to stay there before this season is done. Matt Edmondson in P11, not in the 10th day for UKSimRacing Clark, falls outside the top 10, and it's been some time since we've seen him outside the top 10, but you can imagine he'll look to try and charge back before all is said and done. As will John Doble for TE Simsport Kimmy, as the challenges continue on 130 points, but he's 9 clear Stephen Parker Hamilton, with BJ Alvarez and Sean Gaffney completing your top 15. And then to round out the AM Championship, it's Sander Rustad, Cy Hartley, Ricky Ping, Matt Maddox, Frank Klein in P20, and last but not least, in P21, Lawrence Marsh there. In fact, Lawrence March, I should say, on his debut for Downforce Racing. But now coming on to the team's standings, last but not least, looking at the top 30, we can see it's Racing Lab Esports AM on 453 points. They've not quite wrapped things up as of yet, we do believe, but they are very close to doing so, and they just need a nominal portion of points versus ProTech Motorsport next time out to become our team's champions for Season 11. ProTech Motorsport, meanwhile, find themselves in a battle for P2 between themselves and TE Simsport Kimmy. The gap is only 3 points, and it's going to go down to the wire between them. And they've got an advantage of what is the best part of 34 points over UKSimRacing Prize, who in turn face a battle for P4 with Old Dudes in Cars. Outside the top 5, it's Racing Lab Esports AM2, who look to hold on versus TPA Racing and Slow and Steady Racing. And then at P9, it's TE Simsport Tower, who are in a bit of no man's land versus the chase for Slow and Steady Racing. But they've got to be worried about the fact that they do have Downforce Racing right hot on the heels, and UKSimRacing Clark and UKSimRacing Moss are not too far behind P11, P12, so we've got a fight on for that P9 position, but who is going to take it? Then P13 is Team Year 1 ahead of Ignium Motorsport, with PSimRacing wrapping up the top 15 on 211 points, and to round off the top 20 is Racing Lab Esports AM3, 7 points clear over Empire Motorsport, with Satellite Racing, Disaster Prime Racing and Bike Racing completing the top 20, and then at P21 Olympus Esports, they're trying to sneak their way into the top 20 right at the end of the season, and Simulator Esports in P22 ahead of Team SimRacing Chicago, and then at Simulation Motorsport, 7 points clear Phillips GP, with Team Norway Racing at P26 ahead of Aspire Race Team, ProTech Academy, 9 Sheets at Autosport, and then round off the top 30 there, 52 Racing, and not listed P31, P32, Team Harden, AI Race Series, DCW Racing. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our recap of the standings after 8 rounds of 9, and now it's time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the UK sim racing community, perhaps you're sat there right now thinking that you want to be on the grid for a future championship as hosted by UK Sim Racing, and we've got plenty to come, let's assure you, and you'll hear more about it next week at the end of the round number 9 broadcast. Well, firstly, we do recommend you head to our official website, uksimracing.co.uk, to find out all the latest information, upcoming news with regards to the UK Sim Racing community. But if you're more of a social media person and you don't want to go to the website, then you can instead follow us on Twitter. That's the best place to do so, and we may be found at twitter.com/UKSimRacing_. We'd also like to take this moment to give a big thank you to our affiliates, and they do include Swello Meadows Sim Racing Coaching and the creator of the Motor Racing Checklist, Swello Meadows Sim Racing Coaching, and to help take your sim racing to the next level. Whether you're looking to gain a 10th, improve your approach to the racing line, or develop your consistency, Swello has a coaching course to meet your needs. And women being a multi-time champion of official iRacing series, including the 2021 PESCC, you know you're receiving coaching from the very best in the industry. We also have Race Anywhere, the provider of curated sim racing equipment aimed to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. Demon Tweaks, the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide, so no matter what your level of discipline, Demon Tweaks can help drive you to realise your motorsport ambitions. SimLab, the leading manufacturer of high-quality sim racing related hardware, as a proud partner of Mercedes-AMG Petronas Esports, SimLab aims to enhance virtual racing experience with uncompromising solutions that push the boundaries of esports and make SimLab the go-to brand for quality sim racing rigs. Amazon, the company trying to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, the Earth's best employer, and the Earth's safest place to work through the provision of concepts pioneered by Amazon, which include, but are not limited to, Amazon Alexa, Amazon Fire TV, and one-click shopping. And lastly, SRC Driver Academy, a division of Sim Racing Community. Elevate your sim racing skills with SRC Driver Academy. Their team of experienced professionals is dedicated to helping you reach your full potential without compromising on quality. But why choose them? To put it simply, affordable, quality coaching. They have experienced coaches who provide valuable insights and a competitive edge. They make high-quality coaching accessible to all at an affordable cost, tailored to your needs and goals. You can learn race strategies, position driving, and much more. And they offer virtual coaching sessions at nearly all hours of the day, every day, ensuring flexibility for all. So join SRC Driver Academy today and unlock your true sim racing potential. Do visit their website to learn more and accelerate your sim racing career. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now turn our attention to the season finale a week from today on Sunday, the 3rd of September 2023. Save the date, it's round 9 of 9. It's a trip up the Mount Panorama Motor Racing Circuit at Bathurst, and we still have our Pro, our AM, and our team's champions to crown. But who will it be in each of them? Only time will tell. It could be drama on the mountain, and well, will it spell well for some and spell doom for others? We'll find out then. But until then, we have been UK Sim Racing Community. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.